All right, here we go. Adam22, no jumper.
Vlad, how you doing?
Welcome back.
I finally learned the lesson that you don't wear a black shirt on VladTV.
Because you blend into the background?
Oh, yep.
Is that your new merch right there?
Some of it, we're always putting on new stuff, yeah.
Got it. You guys are the merch kings, I think.
Oh, I appreciate it. I didn't come through with the hat with my Instagram name on a digital sign going back and forth.
Right.
Next time.
Who did that? That was D Haven.
Right.
D Haven, Jay-Z's old guy, yeah.
So impressed by that, yeah.
Right. Or actually, Anthony Jeezy Gonzalez actually put his Instagram name on his hat also.
Platform is everything.
Everything.
They know it
everything.
These days.
Man, you guys are kind of like the merch kings, I think, when it comes to like whatever you call them, the podcasts or whatever. You guys, I think, put more effort and creativity into your merch.
I mean, I was doing the clothing side of things for a long time with my other brand, On Some Shit, for so long. And now I've always had like a brand manager guy, this dude, Jason, who basically just kind of manages all that stuff. And we've always done pretty well with that side of things.
Got it, man. And I think you closed your store at some point?
Dude, it's crazy because I shut my store down for reasons that were absolutely not related to the coronavirus, but it just so happens that we shut it down like a week before everything was shut down. Because we shut it down the last day of February, more or less.
Wow.
And the whole country shut down like a week later.
A week later.
I mean, we shut it down just because like that part of the block on Melrose was kind of dead. There was like a huge hole in the ground. They were doing a ton of construction next door to build this car wash and everything. And I figured like, oh, I'm going to shut the shop down and maybe take 6 months or whatever to figure out opening another shop and like where we're going to do it and what the game plan is going to be. And I mean, if we had kept it open, we definitely would have been forced to close and we'd be paying rent. I mean, I really feel for anybody who's stuck in that situation because for us, obviously, it's supplemented by the podcast and YouTube channel. But for a lot of people, that's just total suicide.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how's your business impacted by this? Because I feel like we're somewhat lucky being in this type of business right now. Yeah. So no jumper right now under the whole cloud of coronavirus. How's it functioning?
I mean, obviously, nobody's putting albums out. Nobody's doing promo tours. Nobody's coming to LA to do interviews, all the same stuff that you're dealing with. So that's kind of unfortunate. I feel like from my perspective, I'm trying to get a little bit more creative with it and probably start doing a bunch of FaceTime interviews over the course of the next week, something like that. People who are in LA, I'm just kind of trying to figure out more content that I can make with them. As for right now, it seems like things are okay. The thing I'm worried about is just like the global recession that then causes the companies to stop advertising on YouTube, stop doing brand deals with influencers, because that's when we're going to start feeling it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm worried about that as well. We don't do brand deals or anything else like that, but really all of our income comes from advertising. So, you saw this back in 2008 when companies start to hurt, they start to cut their advertising budgets. And then that gets reflected into the revenue that we make. So, well, I still consider us extremely lucky because look at all the airlines, look at all the restaurants, look at all the retail stores and all the employees that work in these places. Look at all the landlords who are going to have tenants that aren't paying rent. I think in LA, you're allowed something like 6 months now if you're affected by the coronavirus not to pay rent for 6 months. And once that gets lifted, you think people are going to pay that back? They weren't working the whole time.
Right. And in my mind, I've always thought maybe I'm not growing my business fast enough because we have X amount of dollars that are just in the bank as sort of a safety net. And a lot of people probably would have told me like, you should be using that cash to try to accelerate parts of your business and constantly be growing. And you really, if you have like a large amount of cash that you're sitting on, you're not in debt, then you're basically making a mistake as a business because you should be growing so fast that you should always be running through that. At a moment like this, I'm very, very thankful because I mean, the airlines and the casinos, et cetera, they all have such crazy cash flow that, if business stops for a week, they might just be completely fucked. So.
Yeah. It's crazy right now. It's absolutely crazy right now. And just today, it was announced that Slim Thug tested positive for coronavirus. And I guess in the video, he was even talking about how he wore gloves and a mask and he was trying to be careful. I mean, he was eating out at a couple of restaurants here and there, probably takeout. And boom, wow, he has it.
That's crazy because I was super into him back in the day, 2003-ish or so. He was like massive to us. Yeah, I mean, my lifestyle really kind of entails being home a lot. Like when I talk to my friends who actually go to parties and clubs all the time, I realize like, wow, this has affected your life way more than it's affected mine. Because the past like year or two, I've really just been like going home, working, etc. But I mean, that's still the scary ass part about it is I'm sure Slim Thug wasn't around that many people. Like I was at the skate park the other day. I think that they have cops posted at all the skate parks in LA now so that you can't gather at them. Because there was probably like 15, maybe 20 people who were at the skate park, and that was a week ago. And it already feels like that's not happening. Like they have everything shut down enough that that's not really an option right now.
Well, in New York in particular, and I believe this is true in most states, like for example, New York is on something called New York State of Pause right now. And there's a big list of companies that are exempt from this shutdown. And news media is one of those. And us, with VladTV.com, we are definitely a news media company.
Right.
And when we do interviews, we discuss current events and so forth, covering of the news and talking about actual facts and trying to dispel rumors and conspiracy theories and so forth. So we're technically allowed to still function as a company. And if one of my employees gets stopped, we talked about this. Okay, like if you get stopped, if the police ask where you're going, you could say, this is the company I work for. This is what they do. This is why they're exempt. And that's fine. Ultimately, I think they're not trying to arrest people. They're just trying to target companies who are still trying to stay open that shouldn't be. We're excluded from this, luckily.
A couple people in an office seems like the kind of thing that they're not really aggressively trying to shut down. That is when it would get really scary, is if things were to get so serious that they were to try to say that you can't have 3 people in an office together. I mean, Trump today is acting like he's trying to drastically limit the social distancing thing, and he's been saying crazy shit in the news about just not, like, clearly going against the advice that he's gotten from medical advisors.
I mean, yeah, there's really talk of them potentially pushing back the elections like 6 months. Think about that. Think about, for the first time ever, I don't think they've ever delayed elections before.
No, everything about this is unprecedented.
Yeah, the Olympics are pushed back a year now.
And a month ago, or even less than a month ago, it was unthinkable that they would cancel South by Southwest.
Yeah.
And
now Coachella is canceled.
It seems so obvious now. And I remember like the moment where I realized how big a deal this was and how serious it was is, I remember after 9/11, Bush goes on camera and they ask him, what should people do in the face of this terrorist attack? He basically says, you should go to the mall. You should go shopping. You should support the economy. If you stop supporting the economy and we see the economy take a huge hit, then that's going to really be like the ultimate negative ramification of this act. I'm listening to the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, on the Daily, the New York Times podcast the other day, and he's saying, basically, fuck the economy. We're not worried about the economy. This isn't about the economy. The economy we can figure out. We're talking about preventing mass death. So like we're in a scenario that is clearly a lot worse than 9/11 because you have, people in power not worried about the economy and just saying straight up, this is about preventing more deaths. So, I mean, we're in totally new territory here.
Yeah. I mean, DJ Black and Mild from New Orleans, who was one of the bounce pioneers. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not very familiar with him myself, but I'm not really into the bounce scene in New Orleans. But as we posted this article and I'm looking at the comments, and people are like, yo, this guy was serious in the city. This guy was a real force. He was on the radio as well. And he was like 44, I think. Not that old. Not that old at all. So, I mean, you don't know about the underlying conditions and so forth. And I really hope that people like Cardi B really stop doing these videos talking about how these celebrities are being paid to do these types of statements. I mean, Magic Johnson did a statement about this. You're really going to pay Magic Johnson, who's worth like $1 billion, to just go and say something that he knows is false when he's HIV positive himself? Like, really? This is what you're going to do?
No, I mean, it's a kind of thing too where, thanks to our president in large part, and thanks to the failures of the mainstream media, we have a total lack of trust in the media from the average American. We're now in a situation where probably more than ever before, we need government. You know, probably has never been an instance in your life or my life where you needed the government as much as you do now, because realistically, these shutdowns are going to be the thing that stop the virus from spreading. So, I mean, we're in a very different point where, you know, somebody like Cardi B presumably has sort of gotten used to taking everything that she sees in the news with a grain of salt, and everything is always presented as if there's two sides. And now we're clearly in a situation where there is no other side. And for her to go out and say something like, you know, people are getting paid to say this stuff on TV, I mean, obviously anybody who's really reading the news or paying attention is going to know how stupid that is. And the problem is, though, is that she's got a really young audience who's, you know, inclined to repeat that kind of stuff. But I know a lot of dudes who I would describe as, you know, more or less like hood dudes who 2 weeks ago were saying that kind of shit on their Instagram story of like, this is bullshit, I'm still going to be outside, blah, blah, blah. And now are saying like, you know, y'all are stupid, like everybody needs to stay inside. Like I see so many people getting it, maybe a little late, but really getting it. And people that I'm really not used to seeing take the news seriously.
Yeah, remember that one video in Florida with all those like white kids, mostly a couple black kids, also mostly white kids. So I'm like, I ain't gonna have coronavirus. Stop my fun. You know,
a bunch of them are infected already.
Yeah, a bunch of them are infected. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but come on. At a certain level, right? You do have natural selection. Mm-hmm. Okay. Some people who don't value their life probably should not reproduce. Mm. Having a whole bunch of suicidal people making babies that potentially are going to act the same way.
Right.
There is, and I know this is harsh. I know people are going to get on me about this, but like certain people are just going to be too stupid to make it through this. And that might not be a bad thing.
The problem is though, those people in Florida, they could easily contract it and then give it to the lady at McDonald's, give it to the guy at Starbucks, give it to their mom, give it to their dad, their girlfriend. And it's like, you know, we're very used to dealing with problems where we feel like we have some degree of control. You know, like we hear a story about somebody doing something stupid and they get shot. And we're like, well, you know, you shouldn't have done that stupid ass shit. You shouldn't have been running around hanging out over there. You shouldn't have been saying this to this dude. You got shot. That's kind of your fault. Like, we're dealing with something that is so outside of your control. Like, we don't know who gave it to Slim Thug. We don't know if Slim Thug did something silly to get it, but it's clear that he didn't have to do anything silly to get it. It could very well just happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a weird situation right now. Well, something that's close to my heart, the stock market has been crashing. It's been jumping up and down. Today, actually, there was a huge surge.
Really?
Yeah, it jumped up like 1,600 points, like some ridiculous.
Because Trump said that everybody's going to get back to work in a few weeks.
Yeah, and there's going to be some aid coming and so forth. Right. I actually did a video for Vlad Stocks. I haven't done one in 2 years about what can be done during a crash. And my point in this video is that for most of the people who follow me as stock investors, this is their first time going through a crash. It's actually my first time going through a crash because I started investing around 2010 after the last crash. So I've been, you know, smooth sailing for like 10 years now.
I bought a house maybe a month before the 2008 crash with poker money.
Wow.
So I bought a house for $140,000. I think maybe 2-3 months later, it was worth $100,000. And then it took like 10 years of me owning that house for it to get back to the $140,000, and then it wasn't really because it had gotten back to the value, but I ended up selling it around that time. But I mean, pretty like astonishing thing for me to have happen in my life, especially as somebody who, as a kid, my dad nonstop would tell me like home ownership, like your house is always going to increase in value. Look at the market. It never really goes down in value. I bought a house immediately before the biggest crash of our lives. And also I actually bought a house 6 months ago in LA too. So I mean, again.
Yeah, no, listen, all of us, I was taught by my parents to buy a house. As soon as I graduated from college and got my first job, the first thing I did was buy some property. And then I bought another piece of, you know, I sold that, bought another piece of property. And then I got caught up in the 2000 crash, the .com crash. I had to sell that. I bought another property a few years later and it just never really went anywhere. I eventually sold it a couple of years ago. Property is tough because it's very heavy. You can't sell a quarter of your house to cash out. Now you could take a second mortgage out and do some other stuff, but like one of the advantages of stocks is once the crash started to happen, I said, okay, let me get a little bit more cash on the sideline. So I was able to chip away at various companies that I owned and just put that cash aside while not selling everything. And the thing about the stock market is that throughout history, the market as a whole has recovered from crashes 100% of the time. This is like the stock market's been around for like 200 years or something. Every time there's been a crash, it's always recovered. Sometimes taken a couple months, sometimes taken a year and a half, but it's always recovered. And it's very tempting to just kind of sell out of everything right now at a huge loss. And it's really, I'm not a financial advisor, so it's really up to people and their own money, because I don't benefit or lose by them doing whatever. But when you see people that have been doing it for a long time, a lot of them have just sat back and let it happen, or bought more when the crashes happen, which is even scarier, but this is how a lot of the fortunes are made.
I mean, I feel a little lucky because I've actually never invested in the stock market, so I did not see any fluctuation in my bank account at that moment when the stocks went down like crazy. But I mean, yeah, it's definitely, I've been thinking about it. I'm thinking like, should I just buy shit now? But I'm also, there's so much uncertainty because I just feel like every public company is going to have to sort of rethink how their business operates going forward and how much of a safety net you need to have. And I mean, what's really crazy about this is it's going to force everybody to basically reconsider all of their assumptions politically about how society should be structured, how, wealth should be redistributed. The Andrew Yang a year ago like shook the political world to its core. Nobody could believe that he was talking about giving people $1,000 a month. I mean, every politician is talking about that now. It's like it's a given that they're going to be giving money to people.
Yeah, I mean the stimulus check, and they're talking about $1,200 a person, $2,400 for married couples, and $500 per child.
And we're not going to get shit because it stops after like $75,000 in income, right?
Oh, is that what they say?
I saw something about that online. I'm not sure, but I mean, that made me think.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think people who make more than $75,000 shouldn't get anything, me included.
It'd be a weird feeling to get like $1,500 from the government.
Yeah. Like, what'll $1,200 do to me for me right now? I can't really think of anything.
Yeah.
I really can't think of a single change in my life that $1,200 will make. I'd rather have that money go to someone that's their rent for 2 months.
Right, because that's a life-changing amount. Like that's the scary part too about all this is that I know people are starting to lose their jobs and stuff. What happens in a month or two? What about when they can't afford not only rent but food? When you're gonna have normal people going to the food banks, and I mean, there's just all kinds of like effects from this that we're not ready for and that we're not seeing.
Well, yeah, the Housing and Urban Development Department has suspended all evictions and foreclosures,
right?
Which is interesting because that doesn't only include the housing projects in Section 8, but a lot of these apartment complexes and buildings got HUD loans, which are, I guess, cheaper than the bank loans. And once you take that loan, you're now under that umbrella. So you're going to have people across the country not paying rent. I think LA was saying up to 6 months. And they're going to try to work it out with the banks and so forth to a certain degree, but what's going to happen when everyone stops paying rent? And you can't evict anybody, but you still got to pay your mortgage and you still got to pay the bills and everything else like that. This was always the argument of stocks versus real estate, multi-unit real estate. Oh, you should get multi-unit real estate because even in a recession, people still got to pay rent. That was always the argument. People still got to pay rent.
Yeah.
And here we are in a situation where people don't need to keep paying rent.
I never thought about a scenario in America where people would even be able to consider everybody just not having to pay their rent for a while. Like that never entered my brain prior to the past few weeks. And that's kind of an astonishing change that we're, to see things like evictions just sort of turned off. It's like this realization for a lot of people, like, oh, we can, like some of the worst things in society, we could just sort of flip a switch and make them go away. Like maybe society needs to be restructured in a way that's more forgiving or more fair.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a tough thing. I mean, it's more fair to the tenants and less fair to the landlords. And of course, people with money are never going to get any sort of sympathy from the country or the world. They're always going to be looked at as the bad guy.
And it's weird to look at people who are in the middle ground, because there's a YouTuber named Tyler Oakley, who's sort of like an old school YouTuber or whatever, and he, made a good amount of money through YouTube. Now he's a landlord. He owns a bunch of apartments and stuff. And I've seen people like getting on his ass, and it's like this controversial thing now that he's a landlord. It's like, no, that's a sign that he's been successful in his business, that he's gone and been able to buy all this property and rent it out to people. But he's sort of in that weird space where he's an influencer, an entertainer, but now he's also gotten to the point where he's sort of being considered like the rich landlord role. And we're sort of seeing this strange split where people have empathy for the tenants, but not the landlords.
I mean, let me tell you, from personal experience, everyone always wants to paint the employers as the bad guy,
Right.
And as the exploiter and so forth. I could honestly tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I have seen such terrible things with employees that I have not even remotely come close to. The type of shit that I've seen employees do in my own company, is just fucking ridiculous. You just really have to like roll your eyes and go like, I can't believe you actually did this.
Yeah.
And still collect a check while you're doing it, and still come back to work the next day. From stealing to lying to doing things to hurt the company as opposed to help it, and all types of nasty shit. But the employers are the bad guys.
Because if you do something like bad or wrong or questionable, but you're in a position of authority, it automatically the effect of that is amplified tenfold over like just being a regular person. Same reason why when we see a cop punch somebody in the face, we all get very offended, because it's like, you're a cop, you're supposed to be the standard for behavior. Whereas you see some random guy punch somebody in the face, it's upsetting, it's offensive, but it's not the same as when a cop punches somebody.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm thinking this. There's been the Spanish flu, the bubonic plague. There's been a lot of stuff throughout human history. Eventually, enough people get it, they become immune to it after they get it. Like Slim Thug, assuming that he lives through it, which seems like he's getting better now, so he'll then be immune to coronavirus. And after a certain amount of herd immunity, this will just stop becoming an issue altogether. I think the Spanish flu took like 18 months.
Right.
And that's with no technology.
The scary thing is just like, what if we have couple 100,000 people die while we're getting to that point?
It might happen.
It
might happen.
And it feels inevitable enough that it's like, we've almost all sort of accepted that there's this reality that we could lose hundreds of thousands of people, and that it's not going to, it'll be a lot of people's fault a little bit that we didn't contain it better early on, but it's sort of inevitable.
Yeah, man. Everyone stay safe out there. Practice social distancing. Wear gloves and possibly a mask when you go outside. And try to get tested if you can. And that's a bigger problem as well. But eventually there will be enough tests out there. And we'll get through this.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Well, let's switch gears for a second. Since last time Juice Wrld died, that was actually your friend.
Yeah, that was a real good friend of mine. When I look back at it, like he was such an easy person to get to know. Like, he was just so personable, and you would meet him. I would see him meet people for the first time, and then he would just be talking about his life in crazy depth to people he barely knew. He would talk about his struggles with drugs. He'd talk about, relationships and shit. Like, I remember him just laying it on me because he had like one girlfriend when he came into rap, and then basically they broke up, and then he got another girlfriend that he was with right up until he passed. And like, I remember like seeing him when he was in that in-between period, and he just laid it on me, like telling me every single thought that he had about, I don't really like being single. Like, all my boys are kind of trying to tell me that like, I got to just be single. Like, this shit is wet. Like, in a way that I would just never just share my feelings like that with just a random person that I didn't really necessarily know that well. I mean, he knew me, but I mean, he was just like the most expressive, communicative person, and it really showed through the music, I felt.
What did he tell you about the drug addiction?
You know, sometimes I would see him and he would have clearly just been sleeping for a day or two, like just sleeping off the high or whatever.
People sleep for a day or two?
Yeah, if you've been up off perks and shit, and like you
Huh.
just need to, you know, just basically just sleep it off as much as possible.
Wait, perks keep you up for days?
Yeah, especially I don't know if you're mixing with other stuff and everything, but like it definitely could have you up for a long time. I remember one time I seen him, and he was like really perked out, and he was just sort of he had like one headphone in, and he was just sort of like listening to the music and sort of like singing along to the music, and it was like I walked into the room to see him backstage at his show, and he was like gone, like he was just so fucked up off the perks that it was like he could barely say hi to me. He could barely even talk to anybody who was in the room because he was too fucking. Like if you never did a perk, it's kind of hard to explain how it makes you feel, but you just feel very like up, shaky. Like it's like a very extreme version of like drinking some coffee or whatever, but you feel very like just numb. And like there's a point where you can do enough of it that you just sort of, I don't know, it's hard to describe exactly what you do. Whereas like a Xanax, it's like a pretty simple high, it just makes you drowsy and anxiety's out the window and everything. The perk thing, man, that's like a wild drug to be addicted to be honest. I never even really did much of it in my life, but he was honestly probably the person I knew who sort of exposed me to the side effects of that the most, just from sort of seeing what he was dealing with.
And he talked about it in his music a lot.
Constantly.
When you listen to a Juice WRLD song, you could just pick damn near any song out of his catalog, and he's talking about doing different drugs in almost every song. He was putting it all out there. He wasn't trying to hide it. He wasn't trying to downplay it. I don't know if he was trying to glamorize it as much as just going through his own experience. And you know, you talk to a lot of artists, and I remember Boosie said this about, because we were talking about, I think, Future at the time. And he goes, well, you know, as an artist, you know, if you really are trying to get your pure art out there, you have to talk about what it is that you're going through. You can't just talk about a bunch of made up stuff. And I guess a lot of artists, they feel they have to do that. If they're taking drugs, they have to talk about the drugs in their music. And that seems to be what he was doing consistently. But he was just such a talent. A lot of these guys, they get by with a style. They get by with a look. They get by because they went viral. They get by because of their social media presence. He was just really purely music. He wasn't a troll. I know he had social media, but I didn't really know him for that at all.
His whole brand was just being like the nicest kid in the world. Like nobody ever really had anything against him. I remember like 6ix9ine trying to beef with him.
Yeah.
He thought it was funny. He thought it was hilarious. He couldn't, which, I mean, to be fair, 6ix9ine, that video he made where he goes in the corner of the room and he starts playing the Juice WRLD song and he's like fake crying. I still see the shadows in my room.
Yeah.
That 6ix9ine video is one of the funniest Instagram clips ever done at another rapper ever. So I'm not at all surprised that Juice WRLD was able to find that so funny. But I mean, like there were other times. I remember like there was a rapper dissing him, like a more underground rapper that we shall not even name. And Juice WRLD called me and was like, what do you think I should do? And I'm like, don't respond, because if you respond, you're just giving this guy more attention, and that's what he wants here. So just don't respond. He ends up responding, but just being like, oh man, like I fuck with your music and I like you, and you know, it sucks that you feel that way about me. And like within a couple of tweets, the dude had clearly was just like, you know, I don't have a problem with Juice WRLD. Like Juice WRLD seems like a good guy. His music's good, blah, blah, blah. Like he was so nice that he couldn't really beef with anyone. It just didn't really work.
Yeah. How did you feel when you heard the news?
I mean, just rolling over in bed and just seeing that was just, I mean, it was brutal. Just, I don't know. I mean, there's an extent to which I just hate how normal it feels to have a young rapper be so fucked up off drugs. Like it just feels like we should know enough at this point that it should seem like an emergency to help them out, you know, after seeing what happened to Peep and everybody else. It just feels like at this point, if I had an artist that was under me, if I found an artist I wanted to sign him and they had like a drug problem, it just feels like at this point, for my conscience and for, you know, potential legal liability, I would just not be able to have that around me unless I was really actively working to get them clean, because I've seen so many people around me die from drugs even just the past couple of years. It's kind of hard for me to imagine. Like, I feel like it's not that anyone in particular was, you know, liable or negligible. And, you know, I don't know the extent to which anybody could have stopped him from just doing whatever he wanted, but I do feel like everybody in his life needed to probably have done more, and anybody in a similar situation going forward, like his passing should just be more and more evidence that if you have somebody in your life who's really addicted to drugs, you need to, you know, try to get in there.
Yeah, I mean, because you knew Lil Peep. I just saw his documentary recently. Really a really well-made documentary. You saw it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know him at all. I know you guys were cool.
Yeah.
There's a video of him like kissing you in the forehead.
Yeah, and I filmed it like down here, and I'm fat as fuck, so it's like he's all young and beautiful, and I'm just like, ugh, it's not good.
That was a sad one. He had a fentanyl overdose, and Juice Wrld apparently the feds were raiding his private plane, and he just popped a bunch of perks because he had them on him.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I read in the news too. I never actually really talked to anybody who was there. I wonder to what extent that story is maybe different if you were to hear it. Like, I don't know, it's just, it seems kind of so silly to just take a bunch of pills when it's like, if you were really getting busted with a bunch of illegal stuff, like whether you knew about it or didn't know about it, a couple of pills is nothing, you know? Like when you have 70 pounds of weed and a bunch of guns and all this, whatever was on that plane, you know, a handful of perks is not going to make a dent in the case.
Yeah, if he actually knew about the guns and weed.
Right. And even if
there's
you
that.
didn't, though, it's like, what is 10 perks in your pocket if you're a fucking famous rapper and you're on a plane and you got a whole bunch of people that should be taking that charge for you if you did get charged for it.
No one can take a charge for something that's in your pocket, though.
Yeah, but I mean, you're on the plane, you see them robbing you, you could take them and throw them on the ground, dump them. I mean, it just feels like that part has never fully made sense to me.
Well, here's the thing. You and I are not criminals. Neither was Juice Wrld. He was not a gangster rapper. He was not a guy that was used to dealing with the cops on a regular basis. You know, I remember some things in my past. I remember getting a very threatening phone call from a police officer over some shit that I actually did, and I'm not going to talk about. And I just remember the fear. You know, I'm like, oh shit, I might get a couple years for this. Like, luckily the whole thing, I was able to get a lawyer and make it blow over, but I remember the actual fear in my stomach for the first time ever. Like, oh no, I just did something that might land me in prison. I've never dealt with this before. This might have been his first time. You got feds coming in. Like, for me, it wasn't even that serious. It was just a phone call from one of the police officers. Like, he's got feds rushing in. There's a bunch of shit going on. If he knew about the weed and the drugs, he's thinking, oh shit, that's going to be on me. Everyone around me is going to say, I didn't know nothing about it. I'm going to be the target, just like Lil Wayne. Remember when he got busted on the tour bus and everything, and on the plane more recently?
Right.
Everything goes towards the guy who's financing everything. And I got these drugs in my pocket on top of it. You're not making logical steps. Okay, well, I've got these pills, but that's not really a big deal. So let me just go ahead and, no, like, you're panicking, shit's going on. Oh, fuck. Let me just swallow them real quick. And then.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely could have been the situation. I'm just a little cautious of just like totally believing the media narrative about it, just because I feel like it could have definitely gone a bunch of different ways and we're not necessarily 100% sure. But yeah, I mean, that's been a tragic one. Like, it's just,
yeah,
it can't keep happening.
I mean, I texted you the day it happened because I knew that you guys were close and you were fucked up over it. Yeah, man, like, leave those perks alone.
Drugs in general, man. Like,
Yeah.
I totally changed my life over the past year or two. So I think when I say something like, if I had a young artist around me, I wouldn't be able to just let them keep living like that. It was like a couple years ago, I was still fucking with drugs recreationally here and there. So I think I viewed it from a different lens. For me, I've gotten so much healthier over the past few years, and it's just been like the best thing I ever did with myself. So, you know, I want that for like the younger people that I meet and stuff, people who work for me, etc. When I hear about them getting fucked up or drinking or whatever, you know, it's kind of hurtful because I know how much better life can be when you choose to live a healthier lifestyle. And I mean, I still smoke. I mean, I'm still doing porn, all that kind of shit. So I mean, it's not like I got this super squeaky clean lifestyle, but I promise you, like, if you think your life is gonna be better from popping pills, taking drugs, like if you think there's something wrong with your brain that these drugs are gonna fix, you're 100% wrong. It's gonna cause you more problems than you ever began with.
Yeah, I mean, I interviewed Wi-Fi's funeral not too long ago, and that was one of my more emotional interviews. Like, you could tell he really suffers. He's not taking drugs because it's fun. It's because I think he's going through either bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or something like that. That's clinical depression, something of that sort, and he's having to self-medicate.
Right.
And he actually tried to commit suicide and multiple times and so forth. And it's a tough one, man. These guys, it's not always as simple as saying, well, just don't do it. Just say no. Like Nancy Reagan said back in the day, just say no.
Yeah. I mean, I just wanna, like, I realize that, you know, shout out to Wi-Fi, but I realize a lot of people like him, you know, they probably were, you know, I don't know what age he might have started taking drugs, but let's say he was 16
Yeah.
and he felt like he had anxiety or like he had, you know, shit that he was dealing with, and he thinks that he's going to take some drugs and that it's going to temporarily make him feel better. I just want to like communicate to young people that whatever you think you're doing that's going to help you out in that moment, you're creating problems that are going to be way, way bigger than what you would have had if you had just not gone that route. And I'm sure somebody like Wi-Fi could tell you, because now he has a problem of not just taking it to deal with whatever he's got going on emotionally, is that he's physically addicted to it, and it's hard to stop once you get to that point. And I mean, there's just so many examples. Like I knew a guy who got cancer in 2008, and we did a fundraiser for him. He was a BMX guy, and he was one of our favorite riders at the time or whatever. 2008, within a year and a half, 2 years of him getting cancer, he was totally hooked on the pain pills. His wife left him, took the kids, and he was sleeping under a bridge, smoking pills under the bridge. And this guy was like one of our favorite BMX riders like 2 years before. So even right there, I felt like, oh shit, that's what the Oxys do, and that's what the Roxys do and stuff. But still in my stupid ass head, I didn't realize that me taking Xans was gonna be the same exact thing. I think we just gotta keep making it more and more explicit, because I feel like there is a way that you can keep hammering it into people's heads that drugs aren't cool. Because I've seen it over and over in my life that there will be, like in the rap world that I inhabit right now, drinking doesn't seem that cool. Like I don't see a lot of rappers who drink. Sometimes I'll run into some rappers who drink a lot. That's cool. That's fine if you're in control of that or whatever. But you know, I've seen a lot of different societies, cultures, etc., and they all have, you know, preferences where some people really, you know, some scenes people drink a lot, some scenes everybody smokes weed, some scenes are very much closer to people just being totally straight edge. All we can do is try to like initiate a culture in which drugs are less fetishized.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I was 23, one of the kids that I grew up with, our families were super close, had a heart attack and died from cocaine. 23.
Yeah.
And I went to that funeral and I said, I'm not going to try cocaine. And throughout my history, throughout my life, there has been multiple situations where people were doing cocaine around me. You know, like Riff Raff did it once. I remember I was in the room with him and he was doing coke and he was like, yo, you want some? And I'm like, nah, I'm good.
I would love to see you guys do coke together.
No, that will never happen.
I hung out with Riff Raff a few times too, and I never did coke with him. You're kind of making me feel like, damn,
you got left out?
Should hit him up. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Riff Raff, I've had other people around me doing coke, and I've always just been like, nah, I'm good. And I remember my first job out of college. I've always going to remember this. I was at this startup, this .com startup, and my coworker was, I don't know, maybe in his mid 40s, and he was the first programmer to have been hired by Apple. At like 15 years old, he was hired by Steve Jobs. Personally hired him to be one of the first programmers at Apple. Right, and this was like 1997, Apple had already blown up and everything else like that. And I remember I'm hanging out with them and I'm like, let me ask you a question. If you're one of the first programmers hired at Apple, I'm assuming you got a bunch of stock. Why are you still working? He looked at me dead in the face and said, well, cocaine is God's way of telling you got too much money.
Yeah.
And here he was working right alongside me, making a similar income as a kid fresh out of college because he done sniffed away all of his Apple stock. Think about that. Think about how much it's worth right now. Back then, it was probably worth 1/10 of the amount. So if he sniffed up, let's just say 200,000 back then, that's worth maybe 10 million today.
I mean, it's unbelievable, and especially it's like, what do you have left over after that? You know,
Nothing.
It's like if you're one of these guys who buys a shitload of $600 shoes and $2,000 jeans and all this bullshit, it's stupid. It's a bad use of your money, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, you still got some shoes you could sell. I guess you can still throw that shit on T-pop.
Not really.
Not really.
Bunch of used shoes.
But there's no used cocaine.
There is no used cocaine.
If you could sell the shit after it's processed,
the cocaine that you haven't sniffed yet, that's the used cocaine. You can sell that.
No, I mean, drugs, it's just the number one thing where I just feel like I just wish I could somehow breathe that message into people's heads before they figure it out for themselves. And that's always gonna be the challenge. It's like, and I'm amazed when I meet somebody who's just straight up like, yeah, I never drank, just kind of always knew it wasn't for me. I'm like, God, how do you have that sense of self as a young person? That's so amazing to me, to just have that confidence to know that you don't even need to try it.
I mean, I grew up, my family had a liquor cabinet that was just always open.
Yeah.
I remember taking a few sips here and there. I didn't really like it. As I got older, I would drink when I'm at like listening parties or clubs here and there, but I'm not really into being drunk.
Yeah.
Now, weed, I've been doing weed every day pretty much since college.
Right.
So I'm addicted to that. You could say that, but that's not as bad as some other things.
Right.
So I have my one vice and I'm sticking to it. But listen, I've tried ecstasy on a few occasions. I was doing mushrooms a bunch of times at one point. I've tried acid once at Burning Man. It's definitely fun. I'm not sitting here trying to lecture to, I've never done anything. I've just weed for me. No, I've done my experimentation. I just don't think I'm a drug person.
Yeah.
Whereas other people, they are drug people.
Yeah. Some people get really into that mentality for sure. I mean, for me, it's like I spent a lot of time in my life going out and getting drunk. And when I think about it, I don't feel like I ever really liked it. I think I just did it because that's what everybody else was doing. And because I felt like that was kind of a prerequisite to like go out and get some pussy, is you got to go out and drink because that's what all the girls are doing. And you got to, that's just what it is. And like, I don't know if that's the same now, because I feel like most of the young people I know are people who are still like really like actively like seeking out new sex partners or whatever. A lot of it happens online. There's a lot less of like, let's just go to the bar and just figure shit out. When I was like 2010, when I moved to Long Beach, that's what we did every night. We just went to the bar and we drank and we hung out. And like, I mean, it's just, when I look at it now, I wish I had the self-confidence to just be like, I don't really feel like drinking. I'd rather feel good tomorrow.
Well, since last time, Harvey Weinstein got sentenced to 23 years.
And now has the coronavirus.
One of two people at Rikers who has the coronavirus.
Bro, if he's dead in like 2 weeks,
well,
how crazy is that going to be?
He is 67 years old. He's supposed to get out at 90. He's probably going to die in prison. Now he's got the coronavirus, but
yeah.
I mean, he's definitely not the healthiest man I've ever seen.
He don't look good, yeah.
Yeah, he don't look good at all. My favorite part of that trial, by the way, was how he would use a walker going to trial every day. But once he got sentenced, he just walked out. Like, fuck that, I don't got to do this anymore.
Dude, I thought the craziest shit about it was I was reading one of the testimonies of, because they only brought 2 cases to trial, like 2 of the accusers. And one of them said that basically his penis was so small that it was like he had a vagina.
Yeah, I remember.
And she said that he had to inject this stuff into his dick to give him anything sort of approaching a boner, which I'm pretty sure she's talking about the same stuff that the dudes in the porn industry do.
I heard about this, yeah.
Right, there's some stuff they
inject. It's an injection, yeah, that just makes you instantly hard.
Yeah, so I've never tried that. Sounds terrifying, but I mean, that That the idea of him having this like ridiculous, like a vagina. She said it was vagina.
A mangina.
I mean, that paints every other thing that he's been accused of doing as so much stranger, and it just, I don't know.
That was a weird one. I gotta say, I remember that. That almost seemed like a fuck you, like a public fuck you on the stand. I don't know how real that was.
Right, it seemed weird because it's like, if his dick is really that grotesque, shouldn't we have heard about it a bunch more from? But I mean, I guess if you're spilling your rape allegation, it's like it would be kind of a distraction to go into detail about how gross his penis is.
Well, I'll be honest, man. Like when I look at that case, I remember like only 23 years was trending and stuff like that. Like really, you guys are mad he's gonna die in prison. That's what you guys are mad he's getting out at 90. Like which is kind of interesting.
Right.
But how many of those women were doing it completely, of their own free will because they wanted a career, they wanted an Oscar, they wanted a role, they wanted this, they wanted that. Like a lot of these testimonies were like, yeah, me and my girlfriend came over and she wanted to do it. Some of his testimony was from people who claimed they were raped, but then continued to hang out with him afterwards.
And it's like super hard to press those charges.
Yeah. And well, you had your own Me Too moments.
Mm-hmm.
And those claims only came about when you started becoming more popular.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you've gone through it yourself and you see the Harvey Weinsteins of the world and the Bill Cosbys of the world, how does that make you feel?
I mean, you do see some of the same tactics being used against people that were used against you, or against me in this case. And I think you have to stop yourself from, feeling sympathy from people who are blatantly guilty. Like in Harvey Weinstein's case or Bill Cosby's case, I would say that they are blatantly guilty. It doesn't seem like, there's no room in my mind for like the possibility that Harvey Weinstein's actually a good guy and didn't do anything fucked up. From my case, it's like I had 2 accusations from anonymous women with no corroboration from 10 plus years ago. And that's the weird thing, is that people will then conflate like basically baseless accusations like the ones that I dealt with, people like Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby, who are like pretty much without question guilty as fuck. So, it sucks to like be in that position and to sometimes like feel this sort of like reactionary thought process going on in your head, because you're like, they did that to me. They said this about me. They basically fucking put together bullshit that doesn't, to prove points that were things that are totally not representative of how I felt like that situation was or whatever. But I mean, at the same time, before I got accused of some shit that I didn't do, I felt like I was a person who was a supporter of the Me Too movement. So I'm not going to change how I view that just because I had to deal, I had to be sort of a person who got thrown in the mix there.
Well, yeah, you lost your deal with Atlantic because of that. Now, luckily, you had your own business.
Right. I mean, the Atlantic thing, granted, like we did sign the deal, like pretty much we signed the deal, and then those accusations come out like within a week. Like it was almost immediate. And then we like actually did the deal because it was a 1-year deal. To their credit, we did the 1-year deal, and then at the end of it, I mean, I can assume that probably the fact, it wasn't like the accusations, it was the fact that the media and the sort of like attacks that Atlantic was dealing with were so consistent that at a certain point it just became like very difficult for us to get stuff done. And at the same time, I was dealing with the fact that I realized pretty early on that like this was not the kind of deal that I wanted to sign. That in reality, it's like there is a way that you sign artists, and there is a way that you are able to then take artists and bring them up to a major label level in a way that is super advantageous to you. When I left that Atlantic situation, one of the higher ups there basically told me, it felt like he was being honest with me for the first time in the whole thing, because before that they had been, trying to persuade me to do the deal. When the deal ended, he basically put me on game for what the situation I should have been pursuing was. And when I talk to a lot of people, it's like if you find an artist really early on, you need to have a network where you can then bring that artist to 4 or 5 different major labels and sort of shop them around. Like from somebody like my perspective is like, I can get an artist hot. I can make a lot more people pay attention to an artist. So then to take that artist upstream should be the goal, not to just be locked into a deal with a label where every artist that you want to work with, you then have to bring them to the label and it's already set in stone what you're going to get for bringing the artist to the label, you know?
Yeah, I feel you, man. A lot of people are like, well, why don't you just start a label, Vlad? You know, you got this big platform. And I'm like, man, VladTV takes up 120% of my time. It would be, I wouldn't want to sign an artist and have them feel like I'm not giving them the proper amount of time, because I probably won't. Unless I had like a whole department of people that just dealt with that, I personally could not do it. So I would never want to sign somebody and then put them in a bad position or lock them into other opportunities that they can get other places.
Right. And that is like, I know people who have like management companies where they have, you know, investment funding that makes the whole company work, and they have a whole shitload of employees, and like they find an artist that they think is good and they sign them, and it's not like they're dealing with them personally every day. They have like a whole staff that's helping to deal with whatever they're doing for that artist. I feel like I felt the same exact way, like, and I still feel the same way, is that I just don't have like the resources to sign an artist. And I mean, the thing that's crazy nowadays is just the artist gets signed so early. I had a dude hit me up the other day and be like, yo, there's this artist. It's like a guy with a management company and a label. He's like, there's this artist, I'm really trying to sign him. He's blowing up. There's like a bidding war online. I go to look at his shit. He got like 3 videos with like 15,000 views each. But they have really advanced analytics and they are paying attention to all kinds of different information. They think that this dude's a hot commodity because he's got a couple of videos. They see the talent. They see him like building this little seed of a fan base. I mean, take that and put that in comparison to like Lil Pump and X. They had like millions of plays on songs before the labels came calling.
Yeah. We interviewed this one artist named Little Loaded. He told a very interesting story about how he was signed, because this was through Epic Records. He put out a video. This was his second video ever. And this Polish YouTuber who lives in Australia did a vlog where he reviewed music videos with 0 views. That video was one of those videos because it had just dropped that day.
Wow.
Not to say the other interview, his video maybe got like, I don't know, 5,000-6,000 views, whatever. But this video had just dropped, had 0 views.
It would be so hard to find a video with 0 views. That's kind of amazing in its own right, yeah.
So he plays this video and starts hyping it up and everything else like that. By the next day, the video had like 100,000 views. And a few days later, he had a manager and a bidding war. And then he got signed. And he's like 18 or 19 years old.
And this was how long ago?
Not that long ago, like a few months ago.
Wow.
That's how quickly it happens.
Yeah, and because when the label signs you now, they want to take all your shit off SoundCloud, off YouTube. Even somebody like Juice WRLD, he had like 1 or 2 sort of shitty quality videos before he got signed and shit. Because I remember making fun of him because in one of the videos, he has like an AC/DC shirt and some jean shorts. And I remember just like giving him shit and being like, that fit is gonna have to get upgraded. Like, this is not gonna work. Like the jean shorts, like you gotta get some different jean shorts, bro. But you know, that's what the label wants to do now. They want to take you and they want to soup your shit up and sort of present you for the first time with this clean, polished sound and look. They don't want to have to sort of deal with the baggage of your old shit.
Yeah. Well, recently there's a new chapter in the whole Kim K and Kanye versus Taylor Swift saga, where the unedited clip of Kanye talking to Taylor has surfaced. And essentially what we find out was that what Kim Kardashian had put out initially was fake. It was edited to show a different conversation. And now that the unedited clip came out, you see that Kanye never mentioned that he would call her a bitch and stuff like that. And Taylor now has taken a stance about this. Kim has tried to come back and say, oh, no, that's not what we said. It was because her publicist said this. And then her publicist said, here's my original statement, unedited, unlike yours. And she said, like, who did you piss off to have this released? I
mean, we're looking at like a 10-year storyline of Kanye 100% looking like the villain in this whole situation. Like, I say this as a person who I know I've been very critical of his recent religious output. But Kanye, you know, one of the artists I've listened to the most in my life, probably, you know, and obviously one of the most influential figures in hip hop ever. How much have I listened to Taylor Swift? Not much, you know, songs on the radio here and there. My girlfriend will play some of the stuff. I did listen to the 1983 album a couple times. She's in the right here. She's the hero, the heroine in this situation.
Yeah.
Him and Kim look like the fucking spawns of Satan in the scenario. Like, what? Like, him getting on stage with her, drunk as fuck, and saying the thing about Beyonce. I mean, abhorrent behavior. He deserved everything he got for that. I mean, he deserved to be called a jackass by Obama. He didn't just make her famous in that situation, because I mean, she already was very famous, but when he doubled back and said that line,
he made her much more famous.
He
because
helped make her much
I
more
will be
famous.
dead honest. I had maybe heard the name
Before.
Before I could not name you a single song, and after that, I started seeing her everywhere. I started hearing her songs on the radio. She was almost like a country singer back then, right?
And we're rap guys, so that kind of makes sense that we would be late to finding out about her. But the thing that Kanye did in that moment that was so amazing for her, that he really did give her a gift, was he made her like the ultimate sympathetic figure. But he turned himself into the villain and he made her the heroine, and she got to be the person that you felt bad for. And that's a very good situation to be in when you're a smaller, not that she was small, but when you're a growing artist, is like for people to be able to look at you and juxtapose you with this maniac who's jumping on stage and screaming and acting crazy. I mean, and then the shit with the, like, that song, even before the tapes came out and before I was completely familiar with that, I mean, that always seemed like such an evil thing to do, to say, I think me and Taylor might still have sex. So she hasn't shown any indication that she would be interested in you sexually at all, ever. And you're just going to say that you think that you might still have sex. That's weird. And then to say that you made that bitch famous, you know, calling her a bitch and basically taking credit for her success. I mean, that whole part of that song, and I realized that Kanye is the kind of guy who has built his career off of, you know, saying charged things and, you know, like basically saying the most crazy, aggressive, viral thing that you can think of at any time. But again, me as a person who spent so much of my life listening to his music and really not having any connection with Taylor Swift at all, I felt like he looked like a huge asshole, and I felt like she looked pristine in comparison.
Yeah.
And Kim's getting dragged down with it too.
Yeah, Kim is getting dragged. I mean, the fact that they edited the tape to make it look like she says something she didn't really say, that's grimy.
Yeah.
That's really grimy to put out. Number one, you're not even supposed to be taping the person. First and foremost, let's just take one step back. The fact that Kanye and Taylor are having a private conversation and Kim is taping it.
And a conversation that he should consider himself very lucky to even have in the first place. Because if I'm Taylor Swift in that situation, I'm not talking to this guy ever again. I don't give I don't know you like that. Like, it would have been so easy for her to never give him that phone call.
I mean, look, I had a situation where some bozo who I interviewed, and the interview never came out, me and him had a conversation about a situation before the interview coming out. And this idiot goes and puts it out on his YouTube channel. And after that day, I said, if I have a problem with someone, I am not getting on the phone with them. Unless they're actually my friend. You know, like me and you could get on the phone together because you and I have a history. But if it's some new person that's out of nowhere has a problem and, you know, they're demanding a phone call with me or something, like, nah.
Yeah.
We're not going to do it. You're just going to tape it and put it out, and I'm cool.
You're giving them that content for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I'm giving it to them. Yeah, I thought that was a real bozo move by both Kim and Kanye to do that. To number one, tape it, and then to edit it, and then put it out. And I wonder who they pissed off for that to come out.
Yeah.
Who had access to their phone to be able to copy that over and release it to the world? Who did they piss off?
Just to satiate like the true Taylor Swift fans who have been looking for that like bona fide, full-fledged proof that Kanye was being as shitty a person as he seemed in that situation. But I wonder if there's any part of Kanye that now that he's this religious figure that he like might disavow that behavior. I mean, probably not, since he's got Kim on his behalf defending him.
Right.
on Twitter. Like he apparently is too much of a holy man now that he can't jump into the Twitter sewer and defend himself.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a Christian. So to a certain degree, Kanye's last album, I'm not the target audience.
It seems like almost nobody was the target audience.
But just from a strictly musical aspect, because you listen to the album a few times, okay, Chick-fil-A, that song kind of cool, and there's another, like Water. Okay, that song's not bad, and I kind of like it. But then you go and listen to the album before or one of his other albums, you're like, oh, never mind.
Right.
The quality level is just not even remotely close to what he's had before.
I would love to hear Kanye have a conversation about the impact of his last record and how he feels about the impact of it. Because, I mean, yeah, of course he comes out and he sells a couple 100,000 copies right away because he's Kanye and everybody has to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like in comparison to every other Kanye album, this album made way less of a societal impact. And I mean, he has always seemed like somebody who is judging himself on, being the number one rapper or being at the highest level. And he put out a project that basically just
no one listened to.
Nobody talked about it after the first week.
Yeah.
People can acknowledge that there's some good records on it, sure. But I mean, you're Kanye. You're the dude who's putting yourself up against Drake. And when we have a Drake project come out, it will do, there will be 10 songs on it that are going to get huge amounts of radio airplay for a year plus after that. And I mean, that Kanye album is not in that position. And for me, obviously, I'm immediately skeptical because I see him using like his music as a Trojan horse to sort of shovel religion into people's fucking faces. And there's a lot of young people who maybe haven't had like the anti-religious argument put in front of their face. So sometimes I feel like with Kanye trying to make Christianity look sexy is that I need to like actually speak out and say something and be like, nah, like this religion shit is stupid. This is a waste of your time. This is not how you want to spend your life. There's nothing good about this. It's not always the most popular opinion, but I mean, somebody got to say it sooner or later.
Well, you and I are atheists.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen good come from religion. I've seen people around me who have embraced religions and become better people from that. I think everyone kind of has their own path.
Mm-hmm.
I think it starts to be problematic when a person feels like if you don't follow this, you're not on the same level that they are.
Mm.
Like, okay, if you don't accept Jesus, you're just not going to go to heaven, even if you've never even heard of Jesus, because, this is where these arguments start to fail. Like,
but you have to believe that to be a Christian, more or less. Otherwise, it's just bullshit-ass version of Christianity. Like the version of Christianity that I grew up with and why it was so easy for me to reject it as a kid was because I actually believed everything that was in the book, at least until 12 or 13. Like I was the kind of person that as soon as I was exposed to the idea that there's no God, it just clicked. It's like, oh yeah, that's what I believe. That's it right there. And like, I don't know. I mean, this is the thing about the Kanye album. He could have said, I don't care how much it sells. I just care about making the world more Christian. He probably had said shit like that. The world, there's no like demonstrable like Christian increase from Kanye's like involvement in this world. Like Christianity is not becoming more popular because of his rhetoric.
Well, I mean, Sunday service has turned into a thing.
A couple hundred people getting together, 1,000 people.
Yeah, granted, I mean, Joel Osteen had him.
Right, which even that right there, this is a filthy dude. Like Kanye should not be in a hurry.
Joel Osteen is filthy?
To associate himself with this dude. I mean, he might not be like filthy might not be the right word, but I mean, he's a dirtball. Like he's not like Kanye associating himself with these types of figures is just 100% proof that Kanye's lost it. And this is not, there's nothing good that's going to come from this. I'm not interested in seeing, Kanye embracing all of the sort of scorned religious figures that I spent my whole life just not appreciating their existence. It's like, I'm not going to just start to like look at, maybe Christianity is all right because Kanye's hanging out with this old dude. I mean, fuck that.
Well, allegedly, there's supposed to be a book that's coming out about the Kim Kardashian and Ray J sex tape that they're trying to stop.
Oh, she's trying to stop it, yeah, I heard that.
I don't know why you would need the book. You got the video.
I mean, is it a book about everything about that? Like everything that led up to it and then everything after?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm surprised they weren't able to purchase it back at one point. I mean, is Vivid's profit so high that there's just no price for this? Or do they feel like at this point, even if they buy it back from Vivid, there's so many copies out there that they'll never be able to fully squash it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was like a different time for the leaked sex tape world. It felt like where, you know, these porn companies were actually really in the business of spending huge amounts of money to get that content and put it out.
Yeah.
The Night in Paris thing, remember the Paris Hilton sex tape?
I do.
And all that?
I was introduced to Paris Hilton through that sex tape as well.
It's crazy though.
I never heard of Paris or Kim Kardashian before these sex tapes.
Right. But now you have the whole concept of like revenge porn and stuff too, where if somebody films something sexual and it's not supposed to get out and then it ends up getting out, the person who leaked it could get in a shitload of trouble.
Right.
I mean.
Well, what happened to the one that you and your girlfriend made?
Of what?
Well, your porn movie, essentially.
Oh, I mean, we did an official adult film for Pornhub that is up now. And
so that's out.
Yeah.
Because last time we talked about how you had already
Right,
filmed
it.
it.
Out. Yeah.
But now it's officially out.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like that experience, as well as like just, you know, wanting to help her more with her content, I've really started to embrace the porn star thing, and just be happy to actually do it and to just, you know, it's a side income, it's a side hustle. But I mean, I'm perfectly happy to be a part of it. The other day I did an anal threesome in my backyard with my girl and Riley Reid. And, you know, I'm like literally just sitting on the couch, smoking weed, playing poker online. And then they called me into the backyard. We had a filmer and everything. I go out there. I delivered for like 35 minutes, 40 minutes, like just did it. And then I just went back inside and made a sandwich and just fucking went back to smoking weed. And I'm just like, it's so crazy to me that to be a porn star for a lot of guys, it's like that's their whole life. Like that's their whole thing. And like for me, it's like I can just do this like once or twice a week and it doesn't really bother me. It doesn't mess my headspace up. It's just I feel like I'm good at it, you know? Like I'm working at it. I've yet to use any kind of drugs to like, you know, make you
no Viagra or Cialis or nothing.
I never even tried any of those, and I'm kind of paranoid because I feel like it'd probably be amazing. It'd probably be.
I've tried them.
You have? Oh,
I have. Yeah.
Worth it?
Well, for me, it was honestly, I feel a lifesaver because it helped me for when I use condoms.
Oh wow.
See, without condoms, I never really needed any of that. I still don't. I still don't need it. But when it comes to
ever, I'm not gonna lie. I'd rather wait a couple of days and have sex with no condom for the test to come back than to have sex with a condom. Like that just ain't really doing
right.
it.
But you actually have a girlfriend, right, and you guys are having threesomes with other porn stars who are tested and everything else like that. I'm talking about my early days when I was going to Brazil and DR and just, you know, on the dating sites and going through, you know, 4 or 5 girls a week and so forth. If I had just not used condoms throughout that whole era, I might be dead right now. So for me, it was like, yo, okay, what do I do about this condom thing? Because it's serious. Okay, I tried Viagra once. Okay, boom, I could do condoms, no problem. I could still have my orgasm, whatever. Okay, so then I started popping Viagra when I was in that situation. But when it was someone that I actually knew that I was using condoms with, I never used Viagra.
No, that makes perfect sense to me, honestly, because like fucking through a condom can be tough. Like, you know, it's if you just do your little 10 minutes with the condom on, all right, but like as soon as you start to do like an extended like sexual experience,
different positions and everything,
you're fucking through a blanket. That shit is just like, and I hate that it just keeps getting dry, and you touch the condom against the bed, and it got like lint on the side of the condom, and it's like I don't know.
Yeah, and there's also, I really got to put this out there. If you're out there not using condoms, you should look into Truvada.
What's that?
You don't know about Truvada?
Oh, that's the AIDS medicine? Oh, yeah.
It's called, Truvada is the main pill under something called PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, which essentially is a pill that you could take every day. And if you do come in contact with HIV, it's like 99% effective in blocking it initially. It's like a vaccine almost against HIV. And a lot of gay people a lot of gay guys are on it, you know, because they have a higher risk because of anal sex, you know, on the receiving end.
Right.
But this is something I think everyone should take who is out there who just has decided not to use condoms, because it could potentially save you from getting HIV. And although there is treatment now for HIV that allows you to live as long as a healthy person, as long as you take the pills. Number one, you got to make sure you do take the pills, because you see people who end up not taking them and end up dying fairly quickly. But who the hell wants HIV? Pills or not? Like, who wants that?
No.
Name one person who wants HIV.
I've been working really hard my whole life to avoid that. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. At this point in my life, honestly, given everything I've been through, it just feels like meeting somebody randomly and just hooking up with them is just not a great idea. That, like, if I were to meet a girl at this point and hang out with her once or twice and I felt like we were going to have sex, I honestly would probably, like, if I was single, I would probably just have the conversation and someone would be like, yo, like, you should get tested. I just got tested. That way we, like, because I'm just really not trying to do the condom thing at this point in my life.
And they also have the home tests.
Mm.
So for example, they have OraQuick. It can be found at pretty much any CVS or Walgreens. You go in there, and I mean, I've actually tried this before. It's essentially a test. You swab your gums with it, you put it in solution, you wait something like 15 or 20 minutes, and it gives you, like, it's almost like a pregnancy test.
Wow.
1 bar is negative, 2 bars is positive.
I didn't know about that. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's not as, you know, for example, like all the porn stars, they take like a test where you get your result, you get the results quicker in terms of exposure than these tests.
Right.
This is sort of like a standard kind of blood test equivalent, but at the end of the day, it's better than nothing.
Yeah. No, I get tested at, like, the official ass place where all the other porn stars go.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, they're super serious about that, because you got to get tested every 2 weeks if you're going to be doing porn. And it's actually crazy because at this point, like, my girl had mad scenes for us lined up over the course of the next month or two. And I'm happy to do it. And then all of a sudden this coronavirus shit hits. And I mean, yeah, girls could just be doing their stuff for their OnlyFans together or whatever. But I mean, the whole porn industry is on lockdown, just like every other part of the industry. So
as it should be, as it should be. Well, since last time, Tekashi took a plea deal, and he ended up getting 2 years.
Right.
But everyone else got a whole lot of years. Shotty got 15. Mel Murder got 11. One of the guys is facing life. Kuda B got 5. Back got 20. He basically dismembered that whole crew. Like, all the 9 Trey Bloods is essentially a thing of the past at this point. When you heard about him getting the 2 years, do you think that was fair? Do you think that was light?
I mean, if you look at it
heavy.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of him being, you know, basically like a non-participant in most of the violence, and
was he really non-participant?
I mean, he was around for all of it. From the Fed's perspective, you know, he was not
the Kuda B situation where he put a hit out on Chief Keef.
No, I mean, I totally agree. I think it's insane.
That right there. Let me put a hit out on somebody and see what happens to me.
But isn't that always how it works?
Look at hold on a second. Look at the motherfucking Tiger King.
Right.
Tiger King doing 20 years right now for doing the exact same thing that Tekashi did, except that no one got shot at. He actually didn't do nothing compared to what Tekashi did.
But
and he got 20 years.
The Tiger King shooter just went and did a bunch of drugs and got fucked up and just didn't follow through on it.
Didn't do nothing.
Kuda B was a real one. He went to
Kuda B went and shot at somebody.
At Chief Keef.
At Chief Keef. And he got 2 years, and the Tiger King's in jail right now for 20. Like, come on, man.
The Tiger King didn't have anybody to snitch on. Everybody snitched on him.
Everyone snitched on the Tiger King. Man, free the Tiger King. He ain't do it. Free Florida man.
King, dude. Oh man, because did I tell you the story about Chief Keef, like, already on the pod on this? Did I tell you about Chief Keef saying, like, oh no, they were shooting at the sky, about Kuda B shooting at him? That's what he told me. That's
what he told you?
Yeah. All right, I'll just tell the story. So after the guy ran down on me with the gun, I posted a photo with Chief Keef that was like a photo that had been taken like a couple of days before, and somebody gave it to me. I posted it, and I wrote, "They tried to kill us both this year." And then Sosa DM'd me, and he was like, "Nah, he was shooting at the sky." And he's talking about Kuda B. He's saying basically that, like, when he got shot at in that scenario, that he didn't really feel like there was any actual attempt to actually shoot at him. Like, he felt like the dude really pointed the gun up at high as fuck and, like, didn't, there's a big difference between, I've never shot anybody, but I can imagine running up to shoot somebody in a high pressure scenario. You could point the gun a foot to the left and you're not going to hit him. But you did it and you're going to get paid presumably, and you're going to get the respect or the clout off of attempting to shoot somebody, whatever. Sosa didn't seem convinced at all that there was any chance that he was actually going to get shot in the way that the gun was shot at him. Now, Chief Keef probably been shot at a few times in his life, I'm willing to bet, but he didn't seem too concerned with that threat.
Yeah, but look what Tekashi masterminded, essentially.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he got less time than the guy who did the shooting. And he paid for the guy to do the shooting. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be okay with this.
No, I'm not okay with it. But he was the first one to go to the cops or to say, all right, yeah, I'll tell you everything, right?
I'll tell you everything.
He's the first one to say,
yeah,
I'll make this easy on you, so he gets all the rewards from it, right?
I'll tell on everybody. I'll get on the stand. And not only will I tell on all the people that you want me to tell on, but I'll bring in Trippie Redd into the conversation. I'll bring Jim Jones into the conversation. I'll bring in a whole bunch of, I will offer extra information on top of it. I am trying to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he's trying to get out now because the whole coronavirus thing, claiming that he had asthma attacks and he's worried that he might catch it. When he gets out, you think he's going to be as big as he was before?
I think there's definitely absolutely going to be this period of time where everybody's completely fascinated with whatever he's doing because it's going to be new to have him back, and everybody's going to want to hear his story, and everybody's going to want to hear about, whatever he's been through the past couple of years. And, it'll probably be captivating. Everybody's going to be paying attention. Everybody will be excited to hear it. There's something in me that feels like maybe 6 months or a year down the line, where's the music going to be? Is he going to be able to keep people on the hook with the music, given that he, has basically taken all of those themes and tropes from his earlier content and threw them out the window? Right. You can't act tough anymore.
Can't say blood anymore.
Can't say
you
blood.
You really can't say blood anymore.
You can't.
And
act tough.
I remember when I ran into him, he was like, yeah, it was in LA. He's like, yeah, blood. You see where I am in LA, right, blood? And he was talking. This was not just an act in front of the camera. There was no cameras around us. This was me and him just had a quick conversation because they wanted us to meet. And he was throwing that blood shit around like he had been there forever. And you can't say blood anymore. How can you possibly say blood right now after locking up all the other bloods?
Nah, that definitely ain't happening. He can't ever act tough again. I mean, and that's one thing that I think a lot of people forget, is that most rap music at the end of the day, it has to sound hard. It has to sound tough. It doesn't necessarily work. And one thing you'll always notice rappers doing is that they'll say some sentimental ass soft shit, and then the next bar will be something about still having a gun on them. It's hard. I remember Kanye said that one time. He said, it's so much easier for a lot of these rappers to rap because they can always just say something about having a gun on them, and that's always going to sound hard, and I can't play that game. I'm Kanye West, and I know that I'm not that person, and I'm not going to say that. And so it can be hard to sort of pull that off. And that is the question, is where does 6ix9ine's lyrical content go from here? Because most of his content up to this point has been about how hard he is, how tough he is, how you can't do anything to him. Is he going to be able to really explore other concepts? I know he has some of the reggaeton, the fucking Latin type music, whatever.
Yeah, but that was really more of he was so popular that whatever he dropped, people were going to fuck with it. Mm-hmm. And let's not forget, very high profile features. Nicki Minaj, Kanye West. The guy on the reggaeton song was a major reggaeton singer. I forgot who it was, but
people move on fast, And I've heard from his label that his stuff still streams crazy and stuff. I know that on a personal level, I don't. It felt like overnight when he got picked up that you just stopped hearing Gummo banging out everywhere, right? It slowed down so much as soon as he got locked up. Yeah,
well, the song with A Boogie kept going.
Right, that song still did pretty well, but I almost felt like, I don't want to say it was all A Boogie, but I felt like that song really kind of prevailed because it was a good A Boogie song, not necessarily because it was a 6ix9ine song that had A Boogie on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with artists. I just interviewed Rich the Kid.
Very, very hard to understand what he was saying.
Not my favorite interview.
I know you hated it.
Not my favorite interview. Let me tell you. And this is why we just don't work with labels very often.
Mm.
This was one of the ones set up through a label. And we had interviewed him before for like going back like 5 years, a bunch of interviews, but the label was like, we don't want you to talk about this. We don't want you to talk about that. We don't want you to talk about, well, and there was a bit of a negotiation and they were like, well, if you talk about this, we're going to end the interview. And I'm like, I'm not going to do the interview if you're just going to end the interview if the conversation goes a certain way.
Mm.
I'll exclude certain things, but I'm not just going to sit there on edge. Like, okay, that's fine. Just try not to mention these things unless he mentions it himself. So
I hate when the labels try to pull those games.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff didn't get talked about. Like notice the whole Little Uzi Vert thing never got mentioned. The home invasion got mentioned, but he didn't want to talk about it. He's wearing a face mask the whole time, so he's hard to understand. He's giving relatively 1 or 2 word answers on a lot of stuff.
I mean, honestly, go watch my Rich the Kid interview because I would like to know. It's probably in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people mention it to me, like, what the fuck was going through your head in that interview? Like,
yeah, it's tough as an interviewer because you're trying to create this dope product, but you need the cooperation of the other person. You can't just keep the conversation going yourself, which I kind of had to do
right.
in a lot of ways. And look, he's wearing the face mask, and do I ask him to take the face mask off and risk him leaving? Because it was kind of a bit, a lot of work to get him there in the first place. So you say, fuck it, let's just run it with the face mask and then that. And then the interview was literally one of my worst performing interviews this year.
Really?
By far. One of, like, him and Young Pinch were kind of neck and neck in terms of my least performing interviews. And this is not a shot at Young Pinch. I mean, he's a cool guy. It just wasn't the most exciting interview. Whereas you get someone like Anthony Jeezy Gonzalez, who's
watched every single part of that.
The Clips' old manager, who 99.9% of my audience had never heard of before.
Right.
But yet it was such an intriguing story, and there was so much interesting information. He was so honest, and I could ask him anything that it gets like 3 million views. Whereas this Rich the Kid interview, let me see what it said. I could actually tell you. Yeah, the Rich the Kid interview is around 400,000 views combined.
Wow.
Which is absolutely low for the type of, like, if we're not over 3 million, it's a bit of a flop for us.
Right.
So
it's
too bad. And his album didn't do that well, unfortunately. I think it did like 12,000.
And the weird thing to me about Rich the Kid and the fact that he's basically useless as an interviewee is that he's clearly capable of making good music. He's clearly smart as a A&R / like label dude, because he almost signed Uzi. He signed Famous Dex.
Oh, he almost signed Uzi?
Yeah, that's what their beef was about.
Is that what the beef was about?
Yeah.
I had no idea. Because I
Because
remember he
super
made a
early
video
on,
where he's like burying him and stuff like that. That's what the beef was about?
Uzi was one of those dudes that Rich was hanging out with that he thought was going to sign to him. And obviously it would have been his biggest success to date as a A&R or whatever. If got him to sign to Rich forever, that would be unbelievable. I mean, he would just be beefing with Rich the Kid right now instead of DJ Drama. But, he signed Rich, Jay Critch, Famous Dex. You might look at them and say, oh, their careers aren't like exploding right now, but they definitely, have made it.
They made their mark. I would give both of them their props.
No, I would still say Jay Critch has a definite chance. He might need to switch some shit up, but his music is good and stuff. He signed 83 Babies, who are really good.
And then one of the guys ended up killing a 9-year-old.
Which I've learned about
allegedly.
From your interview, yep. But, I mean, he's clearly a guy who's got something going on upstairs, but then, like, sort of chooses to present himself in interviews as if, I mean, I don't even want to begin to describe it, but whatever he's putting forth, that version of himself.
I mean, and me and him would DM each other. We were supposed to do an interview before, because we were supposed to do 83 Babies and him at the same time. And then the whole 83 Babies murder thing happened. And we had been supporting him for 5 years, and we do the interview, and he just almost doesn't want to be there. And then as soon as the interview ends, he takes off his mask and he has his Rolls Royce truck in our parking lot, and he shoots a music video.
Right out there?
Right out there in the parking lot, all animated. I'm like, look at this girl, like, this is the energy I needed in my interview right here. Here it is.
Wow.
Here it is. 5 minutes later. And I think my interview was the only interview he did before his album dropped. And not to say that, I just feel like he could have pushed it a lot harder. The album kind of dropped, and it did the same as Blueface. Blueface, both of them did around 12, 13.
Right.
And Rich the Kid, I feel, is a much bigger artist than Blueface. He has a bunch of big songs like Plug Walk and New Freezer and a bunch of, and then his next album had a bunch of big songs. Like Blueface has one really big song, but I would put Rich the Kid as an artist with a bigger fan base. But
I don't really feel like, you know, in terms of just why his album underperformed, I don't think that there was a lot going on in the culture that made people excited about listening to the Rich the Kid album.
Lil Uzi Vert dropped right around the same time, and they were supposed to drop on the same day. I think he moved it out that slot.
I mean, honestly, like the Lil Uzi Vert explosion of having him put out 2 projects 2 weeks in a row, a lot of artists suffered because that Megan project sort of went without too much commotion aside from the label drama.
Yeah.
The Blueface thing, I mean, you know, same thing. It's like he didn't really, what was the Blueface moment that would make you want to check that album out? And that's a very like underrated skill that I've heard discussed in terms of rappers is like, can you make yourself hot? Because you might have to spend X amount of years not hot out of the year, like take yourself and sort of hide yourself away so that the people will get more excited to hear music from you. But then when you come out, you have to be able to figure out what you need to do in order to make the people really give a shit about what you're putting out there. Obviously with Uzi, it's like he's had this multi-year like run time of like building up anticipation for it. I don't think Rich the Kid or Blueface really did anything to make them part of the conversation in that moment. And even, you know, when Blueface did the thing where he threw the money off the car in Skid Row for the homeless, think about something like that. Think about Blueface, even with the sort of Nipsey and Whack, like weird, like beef of him not mentioning Nipsey or whatever. Blueface is all in the news when that happened,
which I didn't think was a big deal. I thought that was. Look, you don't have to shout out everyone who passes if you don't know that person.
I don't think it's a big deal that he didn't post Nipsey. I get that because if you get gang shit in LA, it's like, oh, okay, he didn't want to acknowledge somebody that maybe had issues or whatever. But the thing on my interview where I'm asking Whack about it and Blueface does not say R.I.P. Nipsey, he's just sitting there and he's munching on chips or peanuts. I forget what it was. He's being so disrespectful with his whole demeanor about it that it takes him not saying anything about Nipsey and it shifts it from him just not saying anything to him basically like disrespecting him because of the way he was eating those chips.
I guess, man.
But either way, I'm saying that there's always Blueface shit in the news. He didn't do any of that leading up to the album. It's like,
well, he went on a promo run.
Right, but
we didn't interview him, but
it didn't really turn into anything.
I mean, I know Nick Cannon did, and a few other people did.
Even something like remember Blueface and Shiggy were going at it after Rolling Loud because Blueface said,
Shiggy offered to drop an album that was going to outsell Blueface.
That is an example of the kind of thing that Blueface could have used to build like significantly more hype for his album. Is like having any sort of good conversation. And Shiggy's not like the biggest star in the world, but Blueface. You know, if Blueface had just cooked something up better, that album definitely could have sold 2, 3, 4 times as much as it sold. Like, how is everybody killing Lil Xan for selling 20K back when he came out? And now you got these dudes who are way more established than Lil Xan doing half as much.
Hey, man, I think it really comes down, no matter how much extra shit you do, it kind of comes down to the actual music. And you could say, Lil Uzi Vert had all this, he didn't drop for a long time. He had all this anticipation. Oh, he had the drama with, DJ Drama and Don Cannon. Oh yeah, he signed to, Rock Nation. And yeah, he got all these face tattoos. And yeah, he dresses like a girl sometimes and blah, blah. But when you listen to that album, you go, wow, this is a great album.
It's exciting.
This is a great album. And it's an example where you see people like the Futures of the world who say, I record 3-4 songs a day and I drop an album every couple months. Whereas, I'm going to spend a few years working on this album and I'm going to have hundreds of songs. I'm going to keep tossing songs out and stick to only the best ones and keep refining these songs and tweaking them and really put out a quality piece of work. Just like back in the day when, a Public Enemy or a Tribe Called Quest or an Ice Cube, when they put out an album, it was not every year. It was every couple of years. And it took them a long time to do it. And they put it together and there's a lot of love and devotion in it. When I listen to Lil Uzi Vert, and I was not the biggest fan, but after hearing this album, I'm like, wow, this is really good.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know like how Blueface recorded this project, but I know that when I listened to, or when I spoke to him about his EP that he put out before this project, that he was basically like, I'm the kind of artist where if I put out a project, I got 8 songs, I probably recorded 9. I probably recorded 10. Like he's just straight up, and that's what the album sounds like. To be fair,
yeah, these guys that say I don't write, I go in the booth and I freestyle it. And if you put out enough music, you will eventually get a hit by doing it that way, but you will not put out a project. Like, for example, I'll tell you this, and this is how, I remember when I interviewed Migos, that's how they said they do it. They said, yeah, we just go in, we were talking about like Fight Night or like one of their bigger songs back then. They're like, yeah, we just came in, did it, one take, on to the next song and so forth. How long did it take y'all to make Fight Night?
Took it like 10, 20, 30 minutes. 30 minutes. That's 30 minutes.
Come up with the chorus about 10, 15.
30 minutes gonna be that because all 3 of us on the song, we all in the same building, but it take us like 15 minutes for each person to do their verse.
So 30 minutes y'all put together Fight Night.
Yeah, you can say
that. I don't think the Migos have had a project as solid all the way through like Lil Uzi Vert.
Yeah, probably not.
They've had very big songs, but their projects as a whole, the Culture album was good, but not as good as a Lil Uzi Vert album. No. That's how I feel.
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you look at the process, I think that it is very good to like. It's just the most sensible way for an artist to work, to go in the booth and sort of, hum a melody and rap over the melody, and then the chorus is the first thing that pops into your head, whatever. Because when you really look at pop songwriters, they actually do things the same way, that they go into the booth and like a pop songwriter will basically just sort of like hum and do melodies until they find something that sounds like something that you could put lyrics over that would fit that melody. That process is really like what musicians as a whole, whether it's hip hop or pop, have sort of landed on, is the idea that you're going to go in and create a rough sketch, and that your first attempt at creating something on this beat is probably going to be better than, like, if you take 10 beats and you sort of freestyle over 10 beats and come up with 10 rough songs, that you're essentially doing more than if you were to take the same beat and try to write 10 different verses to it. It's like you would probably be better off just catching the vibe off of the beat and going with your first instinct there. But the thing that I think a lot of rappers miss out on is that the best rappers then, once they have that verse that they spit, or once they have that rough version of a hook, then they could go back afterwards and work on that song and really like dial in on what makes it special. And I think that the idea that you're going to go in and you're going to make a song in 10 minutes and that's the final version, that's poisonous to the ultimate creative project process.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of these guys do these days.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's actually what Juice WRLD claimed he did on his first album.
He did, and I think that as time went by with Juice, you would start to see situations unfold a little bit differently, where people would be coming to him with songs already written, and either they would be wanting him to do a verse and then like do this hook that we already basically wrote out the structure of what the hook is going to sound like. I mean, the thing with Juice, and I said this to him before too, is like, 2 of your biggest songs, the All Girls Are the Same and Lucid Dreams, those were written during the time period in his life where he couldn't afford studio time, so he had to sit in his room and write out songs, and then once he went into the studio, he would already know exactly what he was going to say, so he would just lay down those vocals. He already had that was him in that strong songwriting process, because he had only had so much studio time. Then later in his career, he finds himself in the situation where he's got infinite beats. The studio's all set up in his living room. He's got the engineer sitting right there. He's going to help him through whatever. I don't know that, I think it would have been very hard for him to go back and just actually take that time and just write out songs and then do it. Because I know that when I sort of threw that idea out there, it didn't seem like it would really make sense to him, given the speed that he was able to put stuff together. But I think like one person who was amazed by their creative process was YNW Melly, because he went in the booth the one night that I went to the studio with him. He goes in the booth, they put on a track, and he just howls this freestyle for 10, 15 minutes. And then his manager, who's this dude Track, who manages a lot of other artists now and stuff, and is just like overall really smart dude in the business, he then goes and sits, like Melly's doing his own thing, drinking, chilling, kicking it, and the manager Track is sitting there with the engineer saying, okay, take this first part, all right, move that here, cut out these first like 4 minutes where he was doing this. And like, he took the freestyle and then constructed it into a song. And I don't know that Melly would have been able to do that with his own vocals, but his manager was able to look at it from an outsider perspective and say, these were the best parts of that freestyle, and we can make a verse out of it.
Well, since last time Pop Smoke got killed, I talked to him like 2 or 3 days before.
Wow.
We were supposed to do an interview that next day. Me and him were talking to each other for months. Like, he wanted to do the interview, but we just kept being on opposite coasts. Every time I would go to New York, he'd be in LA, and then vice versa. And he was coming back to New York, and I was just going to say, fuck it, and do the interview remotely, not tell him I wasn't going to be there, and just do it, because he was getting hotter and hotter. And I remember congratulating him for the Jack Boys project.
Right.
And
that was a moment where you're like, oh shit, this dude is out of here.
This dude is out of here. Yeah. Yeah. When he was on that album with Travis Scott, I said, oh, okay, here we go.
Travis was basically like using the Pop Smoke energy to make that project hot.
Yeah. I mean, he used Pop Smoke's producer, I think, because it sounded like just like the other Pop Smoke beats. And then out of nowhere, he got killed. And it's been over a month. And LAPD has not announced any sort of leads, especially now when LAPD ain't doing nothing because of coronavirus. It might just be a dead case at this point.
I couldn't believe that.
You know, might be a cold case at this point.
When I heard about him getting killed, I thought for sure, like, these dudes killed him in the hills. There's cameras everywhere, all over the city.
Yeah, Hollywood Hills.
How the fuck is there not like a camera at sort of the base of where you got to start driving up through there and everything? Yeah. I was so shocked by the idea that they couldn't get a license plate or anything like that. Like, and what was really crazy is that, you know, I said I was bought a house. He got killed like 1.5 miles from my house. Like,
really?
And it's not like, you hear the hills, and like people who've driven around in the Hollywood Hills know that it's like long curving roads going all over the place. If you had to turn around on one of those roads, it would be a nightmare. You're going up, the other car coming the other way, you both got to like sort of slow down and go around each other. Basically, it's like the kind of place where if you were to want to commit a crime, it would be
a horrible choice.
Right, but it would be tricky making the getaway because it's such like a fucking weird, convoluted route up there. The spot where he actually got killed was not all the way up in there. It was actually like pretty close access to like getting right back onto the major highways and streets in Hollywood. I still can't wrap my head around why anybody would want to kill him.
Nobody knows. I wish I could say, okay, you know something? I've talked to some people, and you know, I could tell you who killed Tupac. Like, I can't tell you who killed Pop Smoke on or off camera,
or what.
Or why
he would have done that would have made people in LA mad enough at him that
might not have been LA guys, might have been New York guys.
Maybe.
I think
that's a good point.
It gives a cautionary tale that you do not want to put your address out there on social media, which is something he did. Not to say this is the reason that led up to his murder,
but it made it way too easy.
It made it way too easy. He's literally flashing his address on Instagram Live, and it's like, yo, like, you don't know where I live. Like, you know I live in Calabasas. Everyone knows that. Yes, I live in the city of Calabasas. You do not know where I live. And where I do live is a gated community on top of that. You've never seen pictures of my house. You know how all these rappers are showing their new house and whatever else. You've never seen any of that. Very few people have been to my house. Like, you included.
Yeah.
And it's not personal. It's just that I just don't bring people to my house.
No, I the same thing.
Yeah.
I had a house for 6 months. I maybe had 5 of my friends come over.
I haven't even had 5 of my friends, and I've been there for years.
But I mean, there's no reason for that.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you have an office space. Like, I have an office.
Yeah. Go to my office.
Want to talk?
Yeah.
Come to the office.
Come to the office.
Yeah.
Come to my studio.
Yeah. You
can hang out there. Very, very sad, man. He was only 20. Broke my heart, man. It really broke my heart.
I was in New York, and my boy Black Dave, who does like content for us out there, he was in communication with him, and there was one day where we were supposed to, I think it might have been November that I was out there. We were supposed to go out to his hood and film on the street, just like talk to him on his block, go around, see whatever he wanted to do in his neighborhood. And I remember that day we walked outside, and I had been texting Pop Smoke. We walk outside. It was so windy. It was so windy and it was so cold. And I remember like looking right at the cameraman and being like, "Do you think your mic is seriously gonna be able to film outside with this?" And he's like, "It's gonna be rough." And I'm like, "Fuck!" Like we just right there. We're like, maybe we could do this a different day. Like maybe we'll do this tomorrow. Maybe whatever. And like we just didn't get that content done. And it just, it's like it's always like that when people pass that you're cool with like, oh, I was supposed to do another X interview. I was supposed to do this with Pop Smoke. We never really got to sit down. I did a little like 2-minute thing at Rolling Loud with him on camera. That was about it.
Yeah, no, I was supposed to do G Money right before he got killed. I was supposed to do Dick Gregory right before he died. I was supposed to do Ronnie Newt again before he died. You'll be surprised if you're in this business long enough. You'll be surprised how many people die right before your interview.
The morning before Peep died, I remember thinking I should hit Peep up and try to redo that interview because we lost the audio the first time we did it. Like that morning, I was thinking, if I hit him up right now, I bet that now would be a good time. He'd probably do it.
Yeah.
And a couple hours later.
Well, you interviewed Royce, and you talked about the whole beef with Yellow Wolf.
Mm-hmm. Which I really regret that I didn't know what the beef was over. But Lord Jamar aired it out on your podcast, or on here, correct?
Well, but your interview came after mine, I think.
Did it? Somebody, like right after I did that interview, somebody told me it might have been discussed on Joe Budden's podcast or something, but when I did the Royce interview, I didn't know that it basically was about Yellow Wolf apparently saying the N-word and feeling entitled to say the N-word.
Yeah,
and telling a black dude that he was going to have to get used to it.
Yeah, and everyone claimed that I just made all that up. But me and Royce talked about it afterwards, and I'm not going to talk about the conversation we had afterwards, but notice how Royce is not denying anything that I said.
I mean, respect to Royce that he didn't feel the need to totally air Yellow Wolf out on my podcast, because that seems like, I don't know why he would give him that consideration. Like, it seems like you would want to put him on blast for that. But Royce was, to his credit, trying to be very...
diplomatic.
Yeah, trying to be very mature about it.
The whole thing is kind of weird because Yellow Wolf has a black wife and mixed kids, and to use that type of word in that type of situation is really fucking weird to me. But I don't know, I'm not from the South like that, I don't wear Confederate flags. Clearly I have a different set of experiences than he does, and I'm not gonna co-sign that. If that's his thing, he could live with the choices he makes.
I mean, I think back to like when I was younger, when I first moved to New York, I would meet a lot of young white kids who just said the N-word constantly. And it was very much a situation where like they felt like, oh, I got all these cool black friends. They don't care that I say it, so I'm gonna just say it all the fucking time. And that was just how it was. And I remember like moving to New York and being like, wow, this is weird as fuck that these kids talk like this. But, I guess they feel like it's cool with their friends. It is what it is. I feel like the internet very much changed all that, where it's like your way of speaking that you do around your friends is much, much more likely to be exposed to a larger audience at some point. So the thing with Yellow Wolf is like, even if your girl's cool with it, even if all your homies are cool with it, don't you at a certain point still think like the rest of the world clearly feels a certain way? Like it takes a lot of gumption to be like, nah, I'm still saying the N-word, even though it's been very clear that like almost all of society feels a different way about this. Like that's just kind of baffling to me.
Well, what did you think of the Crooked Eye interview with Eminem, where Eminem says that yes, he is a guest in the House of Hip Hop? Did you see that, number one?
I read the quotes and articles and stuff. I didn't actually watch that full interview, which I regret. Crooked's a good guy, and I want to watch that. But yeah, I guess I feel it to a certain extent that I'm always like, I don't feel like a guest in the sense that, I'm really out here just like begging for praise and wanting like, all these.
Is that what a guest is? Is that how you?
Is that
how you define the word guest in your mind?
No, but I mean, as a guest, don't you feel like as a white guy, there's a lot of stuff that you're going to just kind of be like hip hop wise, that you're never going to feel like you're fully having that conversation in the same way that certain black people are having that conversation in hip hop, where there's a sense of like ownership about the culture that as a white guy, it just never really feels like you're fully going to be able to speak from that perspective. There's always
Absolutely.
going to at least be a thin line separating you. And I mean,
I think it's more than a thin line. I think it's a thick line.
Right.
I think that you, no matter how many black friends you have, or if you have a black girlfriend or wife or black kids, or you've never met a white person in your life and you've just been around black people, like, you are not going to experience life in America as a black person when you're white.
right.
People are not going to look at you the same. People are not going to treat you the same. People are not going to interact with you the same. We come from a history in America of brutalization and slavery and forced breeding and, you know, all types of really nasty shit that is still ingrained in this country. And hip hop was sort of born out of that experience. So you're not going to fully appreciate it as a white person. And I'm okay with that.
Mm.
That's how I feel.
No, yeah, I totally agree. And I think that no matter how much you do in hip hop, and you have Eminem, who's like arguably probably the white person who's contributed the most to hip hop, at least sonically.
I think that's an interesting point. I think Eminem is the white person that's contributed the most to hip hop. Let me think about that for a second. I mean, there's also Rick Rubin.
Right, the label people, some producers.
The label people, the producers. I mean, Rick Rubin, I think, is the poster child for white producers that made a massive impact. But I would say if you look at contribution of Eminem versus Rick Rubin, I'd probably have to give it to Eminem.
Mm. No, yeah, I agree. But I think it says a lot that even Eminem, at the point that he's at in his career, that he still knows that it would be a bad look for him to sit there and say like, no, I don't feel like a guest in this shit. I feel like I earned my place here. I work. And he
kind of said that in his songs though. If you notice, like his last two albums, when he mentioned Lord Jamar,
right,
he, you know, I belong here, clown. Don't tell me about the clown. Like he's defending his position as not being a guest, and he starts naming all the people he put on and stuff like that, the 50 Cents and everything else like that. Now I think he reversed his stance because I don't think that he was able to hold on to that stance. Which, you know, I applaud him for.
I mean, and there's a difference between like your tone in a boastful ass rap song and your tone when you're sitting there with Crooked Eye and having a conversation with a really respectable black dude who's asking you about your position in the culture. It's just that, like, I feel like near you, even if we were to, you know, without question, without any compromise, be able to say, like, if 10 years from now, people are able to look at No Jumper and be like, No Jumper is basically the greatest media company that's ever existed in hip hop. Adam has helped to create such an insane amount of content. It's the best hip hop media company of all time. I still feel like I'm going to have to enter conversations about my place in hip hop and what I have contributed to hip hop as, you know, coming at least as an outsider. I mean, guest sort of entails some strange things because it's like, okay, if I'm a guest at your house, then I have to carry myself in a slightly different way. I have to be like,
correct,
Vlad, is it cool if I use the bathroom?
Right. You can't put the furniture in a whole different place. You can't say, no, this couch really should be over here. You got it all wrong, Vlad.
And I think we actually have the metaphor logged down pretty good here because it's like, no matter what place I have in hip hop, I'm still going to, Vlad, is it cool if I get a drink? Can I get a water out the fridge? You know, I'm a guest in that environment.
You and I, let's just be honest. Our business depends on black artists coming to our platform. Now, we do interview white artists. You know, Young Pinch came through. You know, you've interviewed
Jack Harlow,
Lil Peep. I mean, I do interview white artists also. I also interview, you know, white mafia guys and so forth. But I would say the majority of my content comes from black artists, as well as black athletes and black gangsters and black comedians and so forth. We depend on these people's energy and their outlook and their contributions and their stories to keep our platform going. And I'm very appreciative of that. This feeds, you know, I have about a dozen people that I support every month because of this. And I'm extremely appreciative that these people respect me enough to come for free almost all the time to my platform, sit down, travel themselves, travel back, take time out from their day, and give me these stories that I then put out on my platform because they have respect for me and the platform. And I think that at the point that I start to act like I don't need anybody, I built all this. I'm the reason why all these rappers are hot. And I can make anybody hot. I don't need Lord Jamar or Trey D or Godfrey. Like, I made them hot. Like, if this is the way that I start to talk and I start to think more so than talk, I think that'll cause the decline and eventual extinction of my platform.
Yeah, but it was funny is that it's a white thing, but it's a white versus non-white thing, but it's also like a media entity versus a rapper thing. Because for me, yeah, like same thing. If I were to be like, I introduced you to X, I introduced you to Lil Pump, 6ix9ine, etc. It's like that's just a very unbecoming thing for a media person to say. Right. Whereas if I was a rapper myself who had signed all these artists and I were to come out and say like, something similarly boastful, it would probably be received fairly well. But I also, again, I think that as a white person, people want to see you, if you're a white person in hip hop, they want to see that you respect the culture, that you care about progressing it. You have to sort of make that an underlying conversation in your stuff. That you have to always be sort of striving for a greater good. And it's weird too, because it's like, when I go to do an interview, it never crosses my mind, I'm a white guy and I'm interviewing this black guy. To me, it's like I'm interviewing a guy who makes music that I like, or a guy who I think is relevant, who has something interesting to say, somebody I want to get to know. It's sort of an odd position to be somebody who's like of one race, who clearly is more interested in art that is largely created by another race. But it's odd too, because it's like so much of like, when I think about my life, that like riding BMX bikes in New York from 2003 to 2010, almost exclusively hung out with Black and Hispanic people during that time, but don't really remember thinking about it much, or like having it be an elephant in the room. It was just sort of more, nobody really seemed like they were questioning me being white that much.
Yeah.
In that environment. And I think in a large part, that's probably why you and I ended up getting into these situations, is because we were people who were just felt like we just got along well with people from that walk of life.
Yeah.
But then once you get really, really well known for being what you and I do, the microscope keeps getting closer and closer, and people keep sort of like wondering, like, how did you end up doing this? What is this all about?
Oh yeah, or we shouldn't be supporting these culture vultures, and we should have our own media outlet, and you're more than welcome to create your own media outlet. Like someone like Sean Conn from Say Cheese TV. He used to watch VladTV interviews when he was working for Best Buy, and got the idea to do his own, and now he's got a great company. Yeah,
I would say that there might be a lot of like white-owned corporations that own a lot of the content out there at the end of the day, but I mean, like, I would say the vast majority of like hip-hop commentators or people that are like having an opinion in the space are non-white.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I mean, you and I are somewhat of an anomalies.
Yeah.
In the space, and that's fine.
Yeah,
I'll take that. How's your relationship with Dame Dash these days?
Haven't spoken in a few months.
I would just like to say, and we're not going to go through all the names because it's all off-camera stuff, but all the people that I warned you about ahead of time, I'm like, something? I've had bad experiences with this particular guy, so, go ahead and do it at your own risk. All of those have not worked out for you.
Wait, who is it besides Dame? I'm trying to remember.
I'll tell you off camera.
Damn.
I'll tell you off camera.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. Man, I hate to like even be talking shit about Dame or whatever. But
we're not talking shit about him.
Did you see the clip of him doing like family therapy with his kids?
I heard about it. I didn't see it.
Oh man, like the shit he's saying to his kids in that video is fucking crazy. The way he's screaming at them. I mean. That I've never seen anything like that on camera before.
That bad, huh?
He's just calling him dumb and ungrateful, and like I can't remember the exact shit he was saying, but it was just, I mean, and this is like a therapy TV show where you're supposed, any sane person would be trying to present a version of themselves that
Right.
seemed somewhat
You'd invite
palatable.
a representative that day. Your representative should be talking for you that day.
If I went on this show with my kids and my kids were saying I was being an asshole or whatever, I mean, I would probably be trying to put my best face forward.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like Dame doesn't respect anybody.
Yeah.
It's sort of the impression I get. And even people who are trying to help him or work with him and have businesses that he seems to respect, it's almost like he meets the person and almost says like, I don't feel the need to respect this person. And I'm going to act disrespectfully around them, which is going to cause them not to do anything with me after that. Right. And then you end up sort of being on your own. It's the weirdest thing because, listen, I would love to have Dame Dash as a regular guest on VladTV. Like, let me just say that flat out. I would love for Dame to be a regular guest on VladTV. Like I love having Trey D be a regular guest. Like I love Godfrey. Like I love Jamar. Like I love BG Knockout. And the list goes on and on. Nick Cannon and so forth. I just know that I have to deal with Dame in order to do it. And to me, that price is too high to be insulted and disrespected and have a bunch of weird shit happen around having to do that. So I just say, nah, I don't want to do it. And being on Vlad TV, I think would help him. I think it would ultimately, the visibility of having this 4 million subscriber thing and putting out his business and everything else like that, I think would be dope for him. Because I think ultimately, when you look at all of the guests that are on Vlad TV, they do it because it benefits them. They get more bookings. They get more, we interviewed, wait, hold on a second. I always forget his name. Like, for example, we interviewed Jason Weaver, and I remember he hit me afterwards because the video about him turning down the $2 million check for The Lion King went so viral, is that he got 3 acting roles because of that video.
Wow.
Like 3, like 2 movie roles and a TV role because of that particular video.
That's dope.
Like this is what we accomplish when we put our shit out. Like we just did an Amon Shumpert interview that's going viral all over the place, and it's on like ESPN and everything, and everyone's like calling him the Charlie Murphy of basketball stories and so forth. And I would love to have him as a regular guest if I just felt like he was a respectful person around me. But I never got that, so me and Dame don't talk. I haven't talked in years.
Yeah, it's definitely just, it's the kind of thing where he sort of like worked himself into a corner in his head where he can't really take part in a lot of the things. Like he considers so much to be beneath him that he won't do it. But meanwhile, his aspirations are so big that
he needs people.
Yeah.
You can't do it by yourself.
He's trying to start a streaming service with his own content, like from the ground up.
It's not going to work.
Anybody who has ever spoken about this acknowledges that it's like you need like hundreds of millions of dollars to start a streaming service. Like,
well, you don't need
from the ground up. You
not
need
only
to have
do you
popular
need,
content to start.
Well, you need, I mean, like who's the latest? Okay, like TikTok has managed to do it.
Right, but it's not like a subscription
their
monthly
content.
Streaming service.
Quibi, I think, is an example of someone who has their own content and is starting their own platform, but they have like $1 billion in funding. No one's going to give Dame $1 billion.
Yeah. I mean, I could maybe see somebody who has like a current active like content output. Like, okay, when Howard Stern masterminded his Sirius XM deal, he had the leverage to do that because he had created this audience that was going to follow him. Some percentage of the audience was going to follow him along. My content's pretty popular. Your content's pretty popular. If you were to try to start a Netflix competitor tomorrow with your Vlad
it's not
content, it's not going to work. You have to, but that even, no offense to Dame, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have like a No Jumper podcast or a Vlad TV YouTube channel type thing, because that's what you have to have. Like he always seemed very like sort of confused about the fact that I just put all my content out there for free.
He's not a tech guy.
Yeah.
Let's just keep it 100. Dame is not a tech guy. Now he's cool on the creative side of things. he's cool on the A&R side of things. I mean, no one could take away what he did for Jay-Z or State Property or Kanye or everything else like that. But you also can't downgrade the fact that he was with an all-star team the whole time. He was with Jay-Z. And a lot of times when you look at these partnerships that are very successful, everyone in that partnership feels it's because of them. But then you really see who was the star of the show when those partnerships break apart. And when Jay-Z left Rockefeller, he just got bigger. When Biggs left, well, Biggs went to jail, unfortunately, because of that whole marijuana thing. But I think Biggs is cool in his own lane, doing kind of smaller projects. He did that one film project with HBO, that one prison movie, and I think he's already financially established and he's cool doing what he's doing. Dame is still trying to do Rockefeller caliber stuff again, but who rocks with him? Like Kevin Hart doesn't rock with him anymore. Doesn't seem like Jay-Z really rocks with him anymore.
Yeah, not talking for 20 years probably.
Yeah,
indicates that.
A lot of the guys from State Property, Kanye. I mean, I guess Kanye kind of rocks with them. And remember, at one point they were talking about buying Karmaloop, and that didn't happen.
I mean, that sounds like the kind of shit that Dame Dash and Kanye West would start talking about if you just left them in a room. We're gonna buy Karmaloop.
I know the guy that did the actual Karmaloop deal for Chic Shoes.
Really?
Yeah, my man Matt Fine, who was the president of Chic at the time. Yeah, it was funny how Dame is announcing that they bought it, which was just not true. And a shoe company ended up, a shoe retailer ended up buying them a few months later.
Right.
Yeah. Look, I think people change. I think people evolve, and I think people think that I slam Dame Dash in these interviews and so forth. But if someone hit me up and said, "Listen, Dame wants to have a conversation with you and just talk out whatever past issues y'all had," I'd be more than willing to do it, because nothing bad really happened between us. Nobody got hurt. No money got lost. There was a few words that were said in both directions, and that was about it. But I have a feeling that that's never going to happen.
Yeah, I'm not optimistic about our future together either. I mean, I tried to...
And he was rocking with you, it seems.
Yeah, but I mean, if you actually watch those interviews, it's just... I never felt like we were really like getting... Because that was what attracted it to me, was just the idea like, oh, this is the super aggressive, wild-ass person that nobody feels like they can get a real conversation with. But maybe if I keep doing content with them over and over, I could eventually develop a rapport that would allow me to basically like get through to Dame on a level that nobody else has really gotten through to him. That was kind of in my head how I imagined the podcast playing out. And I don't feel like we made too much of a dent in terms of getting to that point.
I've learned in life that if everyone says this person is not someone you want to mess with, like everyone who's dealt with him has had a bad experience over and over again. And then you say, well, he's always been cool with me. That's not going to happen. I remember Zab Judah told this really interesting story about how he signed to Don King. And everybody told him not to mess with Don King. And he was like, yeah, but I had my lawyers and I had my managers. It's not going to happen to me. I'm not Mike Tyson, And he even spoke to Mike Tyson after he signed to him. Mike's like, yo, man, just be careful because I've had it, whatever. And, what happened after his Mayweather fight? He got shorted $1.5 million by Don King.
Wow.
Even him. What was your worst experience with him? What was that one thing where you're like, man, I can't believe
not making your money and getting your check and the shit don't say what you negotiated?
Really?
That's when me goes back to Brownsville. Then the Brownsville come out. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Well, how much did he short you?
$1.5 million.
He shorted you $1.5 million.
Yeah. So he got his cut. Everybody got their money. He got his cut and still took another $1.5 million.
Wow. And everyone, and like, you know not to mess with this guy. Everyone's like, how come you don't interview Suge? It'd be the greatest interview ever. Because I know Suge's track record with people. I don't know anyone who's had a good experience with Suge.
But you don't think you can get in there and do an interview and get out without something bad coming from it?
I mean,
Granny's locked up now, but
yeah, but that doesn't mean that you're still not going to have bad experiences, locked up or not, through him or his associates or whatever else. Not that I'm scared, because I'm not really scared of anything or anybody, but it's sort of like the views don't matter a lot of times. You know, like I had one guy that I spoke to the other day who has this big story about how he basically stole millions of dollars from this hospital by buying all these toner cartridges and then selling them out the back and so forth. And it was kind of a very interesting story that made national headlines. But it's like, do I want to do a story about someone stealing from a hospital right now? Not really. Wouldn't go over too well.
See, that is one thing about doing interviews that we probably undervalue the amount of risk that there is in just dealing with so many random fucking people all the time. Because normally you do an interview, only good things come from it. There's a few different examples that pop into my head of people that I've sort of allowed into my life to some extent or another from doing interviews where, you know, very bad things have come from it. And in those situations, it's usually, you know, it's just, if your business involves interviewing people who are, you know, quite often bad people, it's just eventually some of that is going to trickle through to your normal life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I look at certain people where it's like, I know this would be a dope interview. I know I'd get millions of views. I know I'd make money off this. I know that I would get new subscribers. I'd get this, I'd get that. But when it's all said and done, I'm going to take a loss on this in terms of the net effect of it. So I'm just going to turn down this interview at all, even though the person's begging me to do it, or, you know, the label or the rep or whatever. It's like, no, it's not going to be like that. No, I'm cool. Like, you know, me and Benzino were cool for years. I've done interviews at his house. I've interviewed him and his father together, you know, and everyone used to always say, oh man, you know, Benzino is, you know, he's this type of person. I'm like, well, I've only had positive experiences with Benzino. And then one day he asked to do an interview about Eminem, and I'd already done a bunch of them with him. And I said, I'm cool. I'm going to pass on this one. Here comes the Instagram post. Oh, fuck this culture vulture Vlad. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You know, how is he going to tell me he's not going to interview me? Rah, 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 rah. And I'm like, how many interviews have I done with you, man? Like, when no one else would interview you, I kept giving you my platform over and over again. And the one time I say no, here comes the Benzino that everyone warned me about. Here it is. Here it is. So, you know something? Me and Benzino haven't spoken since, and we probably won't speak again.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where a lot of times, you know, people may not love me. People may not, you know, think I'm the best, you know, interviewer ever or whatever else, but you can't really say a lot of bad, like, I've never ripped anybody off. I've never, like, done bad things to people or whatever else. I just do what I'm going to do. But I don't have a reputation like a Suge or, you know, or someone like that where people have died around me or people have lost massive amounts of money or people have gone to prison or anything else like that. You just can't say that about me.
No, definitely. I mean, I grew up, well, not grew up, but like around that time, like 2003 or whatever, Benzino was, because I'm from like the Boston area.
Okay.
So then you have Benzino and like, what was it, Made Men?
Yeah.
It was his
Almighty RSO, like that whole clique. Yeah.
But so that was weird because it's like, oh, you have these sort of like Boston area personalities that are being blamed for basically ruining the source. And, you know, I was such a G-Unit fan, such an Eminem fan that it was like my relationship to, you know, I'd be buying the source though every fucking week or every month because there was just some crazy ass shit going on in there with like Benzino. Like he was just influencing the hip hop Bible to such a crazy ass effect. And you know, Coi Leray is his daughter, I heard.
Who?
Coi Leray, Trippie Redd's ex-girlfriend. She's like a up-and-coming artist and shit. And
she's
pretty
Benzino's
poppin'.
daughter?
That's what somebody told me.
Here we go. And I am Benzino, post from 2015. Happy 18th birthday to my beautiful daughter, Coi Leray. You have grown into an amazing young lady, and I love you very much. Enjoy your big day. Yeah, you're right.
Isn't that wild? Like,
Benzino,
I've known her for about a year.
Trippy Red was dating Benzino's daughter.
Isn't that crazy? Like,
That's pretty crazy.
I've known her for about a year, and then I just found that out randomly, and I was like, you know, it was the kind of thing where it made me feel old, and it also made me feel like I don't really want to like hit her up and be like, hey, like I know all this shit about your dad, because then that would probably make me feel even older to just be like, hey, let's have a conversation about your dad.
Yeah, I mean, Rob Banks is Shaggy's son. Sometimes people don't want to use their father as or their mother as a stepping stone.
I'm not sure to what extent she necessarily knows about how controversial and important her dad was. I'm sure
she knows.
Somebody has got to sort of told her at some point, but
The
she's
internet is
super
alive
young,
and well.
so maybe she just sort of is in the dark. I don't know.
Well, Adam22, man, always appreciate it. It's funny, before our interview today, you sent me this email. You had sent my assistant in 2016 asking to do a VladTV interview.
Thirsty.
It's okay. We were hustling. We were all hustling. I've asked to do interviews for people that I didn't get a response to either. I'm not sure if I even got that email forwarded to me or not. But
I would not blame your employee if he didn't forward it, because I didn't have a whole lot going on for me at that point.
Yeah, man. But look, and 4 years later, you've done 3 interviews with me. I've done 1 interview with you. Yeah, man. And to all the artists out there, and I'm gonna kind of close it out with this. You'll approach these media outlets like a VladTV or a No Jumper or a Hot 97, and early in career you'll ask to do an interview, and you'll either get no response or you'll get a no, or for certain outlets they might say, well, this is the price for the interview, and it makes you angry at the moment. And then at one point when you get bigger, those outlets will approach you, and it's easy to say, well, fuck y'all too. Oh, okay, y'all didn't want to mess with me in the beginning. Well, I'm not messing with y'all now. Don't do that.
In my opinion, you don't want an interview unless they are asking you. You know, like if you have to ask me, it's not a good idea. Or if you mention it to me and I don't enthusiastically say, yes, let's do it, then it's not a good time. I always tell people that it's like, you don't want an interview right now, because if I do an interview with you, it's going to come out and it's going to get catastrophically bad views unless you have some really good shit for me to title it with. And that's not good for you. Like if you get a No Jumper interview a year or 2 years before you actually like really become popular and it does shit views, that doesn't really help you at all. It's like you want to have an interview at the moment that your music is starting to crack off, when people are starting to be interested in you. That's when you want to do an interview. You're never going to put the interview before the music, which is crazy.
Agreed.
That's what people think. They think I'm going to get a hot interview going and that's going to make everybody check out my music. No, you need to make the music hot and then fulfill the interview part afterwards. There
you go. That's where we're going to end it. Adam22, make sure you go check out No Jumper.
Appreciate it, man.
Coolest podcast in the world. That's what you say.
Allegedly. Like, comment, subscribe.
All that.
Follow Vlad on TikTok.
I don't have a TikTok, but it's all good. Until next time. Peace.
Appreciate you, G.